Oh, I'm hearing myself. Um, all right. Well, sorry about that. So we've got Bane here, bane666au here, and little Miss Anonymous, and we're going to be and demotivated. But he's in all my hangouts, so
Thanks a lot.
worth mentioning.
Hell.
We're
That
going to
other
be
guy.
Someday I'll do a hangout without you, Tim.
Yep.
We're going to be addressing a video which, actually, come to think of it, I haven't had the presence of mind to link in the description yet, but I will. That Bane made recently, that was sort of addressed to, I think it's fair to say it was addressed to Tim and I.
Guys.
Oh, echo.
Oh, right. Well, I've got headphones on, so it's not
So do
me.
I think I've got the stream open somewhere.
Oh, right, okay.
Buggery.
It's all Bane's fault.
Yeah.
Is it gone?
I think I've got the stream open somewhere.
Wow, I can hear him talking in the past.
Yeah, so can I.
It's all Bane's fault.
This is me in the
I
past.
checked my stream, it's muted. Oh, I can't hear anything anymore, I think.
It's an echo
I
chamber.
found it.
It's literally an echo
Literally an echo chamber.
That was my fault. Sorry about that.
So it stopped? I think it stopped, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, I haven't linked the video we're going to be talking about, at least for the first part of this hangout, but I will at some point soon. Basically, it's fair to say, Bane, that it was addressed to Tim and I. That's fair, right?
Yeah. I thought I'd make it after a couple of things. You sent the private message to little Miss Anonymous addressing me, or bringing up some points about me.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
also you did the hangout, I think was it 2 weeks ago, in which you talked about the skeptic feminists?
Oh, the
and
Chrisiosity, with Chrisiosity. Yep.
Yeah, so I thought I'd address those two things.
Yep. And I think it's very fair, honestly, for you to address the stuff that I said to little Miss Anonymous. All right, so yeah, on the subject, well, actually, before I get onto that, I think I might as well just a couple of things I wanted to discuss or bring up. One of those is that there's no chat for this hangout, and the reason for that has nothing to do with Bane or anything to do with what we're talking about. It's a more general policy that I'm looking at implementing for my hangouts from now on. I did the chat was enabled for Chrisiosity's one, but not for the one before that, and it's not going to be enabled for the one after this either. So yeah, it's got nothing to do with Bane. It's just there was a hangout that me and Tim had like a while ago that, let's just say, it wasn't great, the hangout, the chat, and it made me rethink my policy on just always having chats. So anyway, that aside, the other thing I wanted to do. Oh, sorry, Tim.
And to destroy our echo chamber thing, I always leave my chats open. And my
Well,
recent,
I used to. Yeah.
my recent policy was just, if the chat looks like garbage, I'll just ignore it and not look at it. So
Yeah, and normally I would do that as well, but you know what I'm talking about, eh, Tim?
yeah, I know about that situation you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I
just
couldn't
on the
really
echo
ignore
chamber
that.
thing, we do not have the same policy, so we're
Yeah,
doing a bad
well,
job
exactly.
of having a mind
tend to
meld.
leave-
So.
I tend to leave the chat open, but it can be distracting to guests, I find.
Yeah. you're right.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That's why I don't look at it rather than shut it down, but
Yeah.
it's on policy, whatever.
Yeah, I've had that experience too with one guest in particular I can remember who was distracted by the chat, definitely. And I've been distracted by in the last hangout. I was totally distracted by the chat.
I tend to get distracted too sometimes by it, so it can be a bit annoying, I guess.
There was one moment where Chrisiosity said something, and then I basically, and I was like, oh, and also, and then I just basically repeated exactly what she said. Is it just didn't even hit? I wasn't even listening to her. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. But anyway, so the other thing I wanted to say is that because of the way that I think we have competing reasons to want to do a hangout together. I think Bane, you and I, Bane. And my reason is because of your last video, and your reason, I think, is more just my content in general and some stuff to do with that.
Well, I like talking to the other side.
Well, yeah,
I
and
did,
that's, yeah,
I did an
that too.
off-air chat with Aaron Ra about 6 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
1 second, I was gonna shut the door.
I'm going to be responding to him in my next video, which, well, not my next video, but in a video soon.
Well, I did a number of responses to him, and then I asked him in a chat to in the comment section actually to do a hangout, and I talked him into it, but he'd only do it off air. But it was productive.
Oh, right, okay.
He was a bit standoffish at the start, but by the end of it, we were laughing and on good terms.
Right.
He said that he'd like to do it again sometime.
Yeah.
I've talked to the Skeptic Feminist quite a bit, and I'm trying to organise a chat with someone who's written for the Witty Bitches. I don't know if you know them.
No, I've never heard of that.
A feminist kind of website which has done some anti-MRA stuff before,
Right,
which
yeah.
I've criticised. And one of my subscribers left a comment on their Facebook page, and one of them actually responded and said she's willing to talk. So
Oh, yeah.
hopefully we'll organise that in the next week or so. But I like talking to the other side. I like hearing other opinions. I like exchanging ideas and being challenged. And that was kind of the point of my video.
Yeah.
It's healthy to do that.
And that's definitely what we're going to be talking about. I wanted to address some stuff, and you definitely want to address some stuff. So I figured we'll just do them one after the other. And because of that, I think in the first part of this hangout, me and Tim are going to have a lot more to say than either of the two of you. And in the second part, I think Bane's definitely going to have more to say than probably the rest, the three of us combined.
Yeah.
So I think, but because of that, I think in order to try and balance things out a bit, just interject at any time, for any reason.
Objection.
While we're going through, basically trying to make our case for that we're not in an echo chamber, and the other points that I want to make as well. All right, so let's start off by I need to repeat something that I said to you on Twitter, which is apologizing for one thing I said in my message to Little Miss Anonymous when I said that when I claimed that you hated me. You pointed out that that's not the case, and fair enough. I take that back. I was wrong about that.
I probably would have made the video if you hadn't made that claim. Well, so we wouldn't be having this chat if it wasn't for that.
That's a very good point. But yeah, so I wanted to bring it around to another thing you mentioned in your video, which is the whole ideological filter thing I said. And that's why I thought you hated me, because my interaction with that side of things was through somebody else, a filter of somebody else. And when I said ideological filter, I wasn't talking about you specifically. I'd say that applies to anyone, Well, anyone who's making content on YouTube for, activist reasons,
I think
social commentary reasons, that sort of stuff.
I think everyone views the world through their own experience, so they have to view it through a filter of some type. But I think we one of the reasons why we should chat is because we need to try to see the other side and other opinions. We need that filter challenged.
Yeah. There is one thing in the vein that you said that I do want to, well, not necessarily dispute, but talk about, which was that you rejected the idea that you had any kind of obsession with me. And that's fine, but I did want to mention that when it comes to that kind of optics, that kind of communication, it does work both ways, and you have to acknowledge that you've played some part in creating that impression, I guess, in the same exact way that my friend, or Tim and I's friend Michael, has made that impression about him and himself to do with Sargon,
Yeah, but you got to realise that the video responses I did to you, the vast majority of them doesn't concern you at all. It concerns the issues that you brought up.
Yeah, and that's the same reason I do response videos. I look at them exactly the same way. I look at them as an excuse to address issues. But when I do them, going back to how I have policies for things, which I think is slightly can be kind of irritating for people, but I have a policy about response videos that I don't do more than one per person. So I call, my videos were called response to X because I'm not going to do another one, so I don't have to call them anything more specific than that. Can
I just jump in? I kind of see that series as a good introduction to men's rights issues. Because the vast majority of it is talking about men's rights issues. So the last one, for example, I think I mentioned you once or twice in it. I probably mentioned you for about a minute in an hour-long video. The rest of the time I'm talking about the sentencing gap. And I gave credit to feminists who are actually fighting against it, including yourself. I gave you credit for that.
Yeah, it's something I brought up a lot because it's just black and white.
And I got no problem with giving the other side credit when they get stuff right. But I also looked at those feminists who are trying to widen the gap.
Right.
which I guess is something we can talk about a bit later.
Well, that's something that I could talk about at great length, which is the fact that feminism is a very diverse movement, and there's more people inside feminism that I disagree with than I agree with. But that's normal. That's healthy.
It's not really an obsession about you. It's addressing the issues you brought up. And your videos are just a vehicle to do that. If that makes sense.
No, and I'm totally conceding that to you. I'm just bringing up the fact that when you choose to do something like make a series like that, like with the same YouTuber's name in the title and stuff, it does create an impression. Because one of the things I mentioned to Tim recently is that your video titles matter because most people, that's all they're going to see is the video title and maybe the thumbnail, and they're not actually going to watch it. They're going to get an impression of you based on that. So I try to make my titles as bland as possible so people can do that.
Bane was saying that he only mentioned you like once or twice in the other thing, but like your name is still in the title.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
video,
yeah.
So.
But it also says the sentencing gap and then the next one.
Yeah.
My titles tend to be very, very long. So
I'm not disputing the fact that it was obviously framed around an issue. But the two things aren't mutually exclusive either. And I can understand your point. Because like you could look at it, the whole Michael Rowlands and Sargon thing the other way as well, which is that all of those videos are basically about why people hate feminism, and he goes through all of Sargon's points at great length. And you could say that makes him obsessed with that issue as well. And he might not necessarily be, though. He might just be determined. The way he talks about it in private is that he decided to respond to this thing and then didn't really realize exactly how much airtime that would actually require to the point where it's way bigger than he thought it was going to be.
Well, sometimes it takes a long time to unpack an issue. So,
but the people just looking at the video titles and whatnot don't know that. They could think this guy could be determined to make 50 of these things for all. But so that's all I was saying.
Well, I'm planning one more, so on male suicide. So I think that's probably going to be the last one.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say is that it does go both ways, and I think my impression that you were obsessed with me was a fair one. Is what I was until.
But don't you think you should watch something though before you judge it?
I'm going to get to that. Believe me,
that was one of the issues I had.
That's my exact next point, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted Tim to be here is because you guys had a lot of communications that involved me and what I've done and think and say that I wasn't actually involved in. And so I wanted to sort of clear some of that stuff up.
I'm your attack dog, damn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When you need somebody to defend you, I'll be there.
Yeah. You're my white man. Yeah. But yeah, no. So
I'm your Huxley to your Darwin.
Tim's given you, I think, an impression that isn't accurate. Which one thing he said is accurate. One thing he said is accurate, which is that I haven't watched any of your series of videos addressed to me.
No, apparently I said before that Twitter exchange with Bane that you had watched some, so it turns out I was wrong.
Right. Well, because what I told Tim is that I have watched some of your videos, quite a number actually, before I even made my channel.
Which one's just out of curiosity?
It was, like I said, it was before I made my channel, when I was investigating this whole scene. And so it was like, what was that, 10 months ago? More than that? I wouldn't be able to tell you. If I re-saw them, I'd remember and go, oh, I've seen this one. But beyond that, I couldn't tell you. Anyway, so it's not about... I haven't prejudged your series of videos on me. I just watched some of your content in general and made, I guess, informed opinions about it in general that made me sort of initially decide not to bother watching your series on me, basically. And there's a whole other reason as well, which I'll get into later, I guess, if I remember to, which is about my general stance on responding to people's response videos to me, which is about my obsessive personality and how it'll lead me to never get any work done if I did that all the time.
So
anyway,
responding to responses to responses to responses.
It gets a little Inception-y at some point.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
Well, I might as well just mention it now, actually. Like, another guy, Skeptor, made a response video to me that was an hour long, and I basically did some rough math on that, and with how long I tend to extend, the length of a response video I do versus the length of the original video, and thought, this is going to be a 4-hour video if I end up wanting to respond to it. It's going to take me 6 weeks to make it, because that's how I work. And it's going to, I'm not going to be able to do anything else in that time, and it's going to be 4 hours long, and it's just going to be ridiculous. And the thing about me is, if he makes good points, which I assume he probably will, then I definitely will want to respond to it. So it's like it's a tricky situation.
I can understand that, but I mean, I agreed with you half the time, so it probably wouldn't have taken as long as you probably thought.
Whereas I don't actually necessarily think Skeptor might have agreed with me much at all.
Was that
all right.
the definition of rape culture or something?
It was about the Steve Shives, or about the Armored Skeptic video, but I don't know what element of it. It wasn't the whole thing he was responding to. It was one specific part of it, and it was an hour long. Just even though it was only about one part, so I was concerned. But yeah, and I've got a video coming out that I might put out today or maybe tomorrow, which is going to be partly talking about how I don't often respond to really long comments as well, just because of the sheer number of them. And I'm going to put some maths on the screen saying it'll be literally impossible for me to actually respond to them all. So it's kind of the same thing. It's just impractical.
I wasn't really expecting a series of responses, but that's the thing. My issue was if you're going to judge something, you should watch it.
But you weren't aware that I had actually watched some of your content, and that's for you to think that I hadn't and make the and come to the opinion that you had is fair. But I had watched some. I think I maybe watched 6 or 7 of your videos.
I was I was talking about the ones in response to you. I wasn't talking about his other videos.
Yeah, but that was my point, Tim, is that I did tell you that I had watched some of his stuff, and you didn't communicate that. So you kind of didn't lie, but you kind of omitted a part of the information that's kind of important.
You don't know that. I could have lied easily.
That's true. Yeah, so I think I've addressed all the things from the video, aside from the main thing, which is the whole echo chamber thing.
Also, we haven't heard from Little Miss. What's she up to?
Good point.
Drinking.
Okay. Because she's just gonna have to sit here the whole hangout in silence, like what is people going on about?
Well, that's it.
I don't know. Depends how irritated I get.
That's true. If you suddenly leave at some point.
I should mention that I did. I comported myself poorly in some of my communications with you, Little Miss Anonymous, and for that I apologize.
You've done that twice now.
Yeah, but at the same time, I did also want to mention that in our first exchange we had in your comment thread, you called me out on making a poor argument, and that doesn't actually, in a fair way, and that doesn't actually happen to me that often. That sounds arrogant, but it's not that often where I'm like, this person totally called me out. Yeah. I was like kind of impressed because I was like totally wrong and you were totally right to point that out. Yeah, so
if I can make a recommendation for you, don't ask people loaded questions.
It was a loaded question.
Really irritating.
Yeah.
You've done it to me twice now, and it's driving me crazy.
All right, I won't do it anymore.
I broke up with a girl.
I have no idea about this exchange. I don't know what happened at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, but she's right. I was asking her questions with the conclusion in the title and stuff. Totally, yeah. Well, an ideological persuasion evident in the way the thing was framed. Yeah.
Right. You should know I'm not an MRA.
I know that. Yeah, the way that you were described in that hangout that you did with Bane and TSF was that you're a non-feminist, and I assume that means humanist of some variation.
No, I'm an egalitarian. Yeah, there it is.
But
I'm an
hold
egalitarian.
On. When you say egalitarian, do you mean egalitarian theorist or egalitarian pragmatist? Because they're two different things.
I would have to look it up, honestly.
Well, egalitarian pragmatist is basically the assertion that the playing field is already equal, and that's not true.
No, not that one then. No,
yeah.
It isn't. It absolutely isn't.
But people make that claim a lot on the internet. Yeah.
But
the whole claim that basically if for us to help out, say, black Americans would be an unfair thing because it would be giving them an unfair advantage, but it's a fair advantage because it isn't.
Depends
equal.
what you're talking about.
No, but okay, I'm just giving you an example.
We're going to get off on a tangent on something else.
I'm giving you an example of a counter-argument.
If I could give you sort of a rough definition of where I sit. I have worked with both the MRA and feminism on the ground at different rallies because I don't identify with either. When they are doing something good, I am going to work with them. That's basically it. I don't
Yep.
believe in picking sides.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Hmm. All right. Well, should we get started on the "we're not in an echo chamber" argument, Tim?
Well, we were at the start because I left the window open, so...
Well, the first thing I want to point out though is at the start of Bane's video, you showed the exchange between me and him on Twitter and stuff. But the first thing you said about me was not accurate. But I don't think it's your fault because I don't bother correcting it. You're just like, Tim Blake is a feminist from Wellington, and I've never identified as a feminist. So I don't call myself a feminist. However, when people call me a feminist, I don't bother correcting them because
So
I
do you
basically
believe in
agree.
patriarchy theory?
What's that?
You believe in patriarchy theory?
I
Belief
do,
is
but
the
I also
wrong way to
think-
frame that.
But I do agree with the idea that it's different depending on what country you're in. So, like, for example, when people say patriarchy in Muslim countries is a lot worse, or in other countries, or like theocracies, or like, I don't know, in Africa and like various other places, I agree that patriarchy there is worse. But I also think it does
You're
exist.
you're mischaracterizing what it is.
What do you mean? Who?
You're talking about, again, it's the theory and practice thing. Patriarchy theory doesn't assume maximum application in all variant locations.
Oh yeah, but I think Bane would agree then that patriarchy does exist. So he'd,
yeah.
It would depend on how you define patriarchy.
Well,
But
I
you would
mean,
say it
it's not
exists
something
in, like, the Middle
we'd
East
have
or
to do an
something.
entire hangout about it.
would you? I mean, people always say that. They're always like, it's not in
Yeah,
the Western
I'd
world.
say
It's
that-
in the...
Well,
I mean,
once again, it really depends on how you define patriarchy. But yeah, in the Middle East, I'd say yes.
So then you agree. So then we all agree.
What you're talking about there sounds, well, I mean, it could be, because people get this stuff confused. They, like when Sargon did that really stupid definition of patriarchy where he just looked at the word, but he's confusing. It's like when people confuse evolution with evolutionary theory, and they're two different things.
But don't you think the word patriarchy is overused by feminists?
It depends, I mean, who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Some people who
Well,
study it for
all
a
right,
living, no, that's their job.
I've heard feminists claim that women getting custody of children more than men in courts is because of patriarchy, because women are expected to fulfill the roles of mothers, even though it's the women trying to get custody of their own kids. But at the same time, I've heard other feminists claim that when fathers get custody, that's also patriarchy because they're stealing away the kids from the mother. So it seems that feminists just throw out the word patriarchy like conspiracy theorists throw out the word Illuminati to explain just about anything that they don't like.
Your argument
And
is...
that's why when somebody says, do you believe in patriarchy? I mean, what the fuck do you mean by patriarchy? Because I've heard it misused
asked me
so
that.
many times.
But okay, what I would point out there, Bane, is that, okay, imagine, let's rephrase that and replace patriarchy with evolution, right? A lot of people misframe what evolution is, get it wrong. People who are agreeing with its existence but don't understand it. You know, like I hear a lot of people talking about, well, they miss out the fact of random mutation and stuff like that when they talk about it, and they think about it as a slow, continuous, and consistent change over time, where that's not how it works. You know, and you shouldn't define something by the people who get it wrong. That's, I guess, my complaint. And if you did the same thing to evolution, it wouldn't be fair.
Well,
like if you,
I just don't understand, like, when I say I'm not a feminist, but that I don't really have any particular problem with feminism and I support a lot of its ideals. Why are you asking if I believe in patriarchy? Like, what's that going to prove?
Well, it'd be interesting if you believe in feminist theory but don't class yourself a feminist, that's all.
well, I think Tim is a feminist ally, right?
I call
That's
myself
fair
a
to say,
progressive.
right?
Okay,
Yeah,
So
well, I mean,
that's why I get hit with regressive a lot, because I choose to call myself a progressive.
What's the difference between an ally and an actual feminist?
Your emphasis on the importance of achieving the goals of the movement, I would argue.
I don't like. Maybe I disagree with Dan on this. I don't even like really agree with the word ally. I don't even know what the fuck that means. I just have the beliefs that I kind of have. Like, I'm an ally. I don't know. I just
All right,
believe shit, you know?
if you don't identify as a feminist, then I withdraw that. But you understand it was probably an easy mistake to make.
Well, yeah, because I was going to point out that that when people call me a feminist, I don't bother correcting them because people call me a feminist so often that I just can't be fucked having to tell them every single time what I really believe. So I'm just like, yeah, whatever, fine. So that's not your fault because I don't clarify about it. Like, if you call me a feminist, I'm like, yeah, fine.
I don't know how much of that.
I believe in respecting people using whatever title they want.
Yeah, self-identified.
Good. Some people don't. I totally agree with that. Like, if you want to call yourself something, then
Absolutely.
I'll go to it. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
people who aren't MRAs and have nothing to do with the movement are constantly being called MRAs. You know, Rush v. Elliot Rodger.
Yeah, people who couldn't give a damn
and the
about
like.
achieving activist goals. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's the
yeah.
echo chamber thing. Like, you know, like, for example, Christy Winters, she often calls people, like, creationists. I've never done that because I think it's a bit weird to be like...
It's an association fallacy most of the time she does it. That's my objection to it.
Yeah, so I'm just like, okay, Christy chooses to call people creationists even if they're not, but
I got a video coming out that basically calls out people for conflating non-religion with religion as a way to insult people, you know.
Yeah, like, oh, you're thinking just like a creationist. It's like, well,
Yeah,
creationists
yeah.
don't have the monopoly on
Or
bad
just like, you know,
arguments and reasoning. So
people framing things as cults, people talking about...
Sargon, you're in a cult. It's like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, people talking about like preaching to the crowd, preaching to the choir, and you know, all that kind of stuff. All that language, I think, is manipulative and disingenuous and doesn't aid in your argument, and yeah, it's just pointless. And anyway, so what was I going to say? So we could get back to the actual subject at hand, the whole echo chamber thing, right? Well, I think first we need to talk about what is an echo chamber, so we know we're on the same page. And we need to agree on the best ways to fight being in an echo chamber. What you would do to not be in an echo chamber. So, what would you say is an echo chamber, Bane?
Well, I would say an echo chamber is the exact opposite of what we're doing here.
Right, only talking to in-group.
Only listening to your own side.
I'd say there's much more to it than that. Like, for example, inherently agreeing with those on your side and disagreeing with those on the other side.
Yeah, to be fair, I have seen you in the comment section before refuse to watch or talk to anti-feminists. I think Sage Gerard asked to do a hangout with you.
Believe me, I got stuff to say on that. So, okay, so I think we can agree on what an echo chamber is. Although I think maybe I've thought, because I've put a lot of thought into it ever since I saw your video, and I might have done a bit more in terms of codifying what I think one is, but I've also done a lot of trying to think about how you would fight it, and I've sort of gotten it down to two things. One of them is going over to the other side and talking and making an effort to hear dissenting opinions and opposing voices and stuff, and then the other way is to call out those on your side when they do something that you would criticize anybody on the other side for doing, that sort of thing. So if you're consistent, like ethically consistent and ideologically consistent, or maybe not ideologically consistent, but consistent in terms of the way you apply your views and stances on things. And with that in mind, this is how I'm going to frame our argument against me and Tim being in one, because we do both of those things to some degree, Tim and I. Tim, however, does more of the first than anyone I know of, reaching across the aisle. So do you want to talk about that, Tim?
Well, to be fair, I did ask Tim on Twitter to do a hangout and he refused. So
no, but that's because like I was thinking like it seems like to Bane that not being in an echo chamber means talking to Bane. Basically, like if I talk, because I talk to all kinds of other people, it was just like you specifically I didn't want to do a hangout with, and it was not an echo chamber thing. It was because I was pissed off that you cut out a snippet from one of my videos where I was talking about the need to like protect women and children, and you were like, "Isn't it interesting that he doesn't mention men?" And that just irritated me.
Well, actually, the video was about the term feminazi, if I remember correctly.
Right.
And you said that it's unfair to compare feminism to the Nazis who killed women and children. And my point was, isn't it interesting that you left out men? And the point I was trying to make was about gynocentrism, which is about protecting women and children,
but can't you see
forgetting
that
about
paints
men.
That paints me as gynocentric, whereas it was
it's a conflation here.
I was using like a standard phrase without my
Yes, a standard phrase. Why is it a standard phrase though?
But I'm saying that video made me look like I was gynocentric, so I was pissed off at you.
Yeah, Bane.
Yeah, I can understand that.
This comes down to the same thing I was talking about before, which is that optics thing, right?
But the question is, why is it a common phrase?
Yeah, no, and it's a fair question, but when you do something like that, when you ask a question like that and frame something like that, you need to be careful because you need to make it clear that you're not saying the person who you're using in your example holds the views that are the most
I sort of like,
out of the mainstream of the views you're going to be bringing up.
Isn't it interesting how
that's,
Tim maybe doesn't care about men dying in the Holocaust? Like that's how it came off.
Even though you don't say it,
actually seen it that way.
And I was like, fuck, I need to go back and just put men in like a fucking overdub. Earned men, like, you know.
Yeah, and it's not about it's about the absence of, like, I guess what you'd call a qualifying phrase, something like that I put into the start of my response videos, saying stuff like, I'm not trying to make a point about this person, I'm just talking about what they're talking about in the video.
When you're riffing, sometimes you leave out a word, and that's it. That's all it was. It wasn't like some nefarious way of saying that men dying in the Holocaust doesn't matter. Of course not. It's fucking insane.
No, but I don't think anyone would have actually seen it that way. But the fact that you used a common phrase, you admit it's a common phrase.
Yes, I do.
Would suggest that there is a tendency for society to protect women more than men.
Yeah.
Children, I can understand. I think everyone can understand.
Well, I'm just saying that's the context. That's why I was pissed at you. So I was like, no, I don't want to hang up.
Yeah, well, that's understandable.
I'm gonna take my toys and go home.
You can see my point, though, can't you?
I think so.
And both of your points are in the same vein, which is that optics thing. You were basically saying that Tim didn't make a qualifier about men, and then Tim's issue was that you didn't make a qualifier about him. So exactly. It's kind of the same thing.
But that was like that was not evidence of me sticking to an echo chamber. It was evidence of me not wanting to hang out with you as an individual. And I may have been wrong about that. Maybe we should have had a hangout. But like as Dan knows, like the majority of my hangouts, if you look at my channel, are with like anti-feminists or new atheists or people who don't agree with me. And I've been in chats where like there's like 12 people and they're all shitting on me, and I'm just the one person where everybody in the entire hangout disagrees with. So I mean,
well, no, that's a fair point.
Yeah, just go look at my hangouts. They're all with people who disagree with me, except the one with Steve Shives, and apparently that made us gay lovers.
Maybe I should, because yeah, I know the ones that you have done with people that disagree with you in like major ideological ways.
7 or 8 disagreement ones, and then maybe like 3. I've done some with Dan. So
those are mirrors that I've hosted. Is that the same? I'm not sure that's totally the same.
I don't know.
Hey, if you can ever get Steve Shives to do a hangout with me, I'll be in your debt.
Well, someone said I went easy on Steve, and to a degree that's kind of true, because I don't want to alienate him so he doesn't want to talk to me, because I know that sometimes he just wants to shut it down and stuff. So
I think you apply that consistently, though. I would argue you're too easy on the people who you are on the other side of the aisle that you do hang out with.
Garrett has criticized me for being too easy on the people who disagree with me, so it's like I can't get anything right. I'm just like,
well, I'm happy.
You're too soft for YouTube.
I am. And I'm too soft on Steve as well. I should have said, all right, I'm here with this stupid cuck who's being cuckolded and, you know, oppressed by his wife, and he's being abused, and I'm here to save him. That's what I should have said.
He's definitely not a cuck, but he's terrified.
Yeah, I'm here with a male victim of abuse from his wife. He would never talk to me.
You've seen the way she looks at him sometimes?
Oh, God. Now, Steve, don't watch this hangout.
He's already blocked me, and I've never talked to him.
Yeah, but he blocked me before I talked to him too.
No, that's in Tim's case that is because of a thing that a specific incident. But in your case, it might just be because of might be on a block list of some kind.
I sent Steve a tweet saying hello, Steve, and he blocked me. It's like 24 hours. This is like the first 24 hours I was on Twitter, so I wasn't on a block.
I got blocked by existing.
But just to criticize Dan for a second, I mean, like that's part of why he didn't want to watch your videos about him, because he knows who you are. So like when you messaged Steve, he was like, "Oh, it's that guy." Block. You know. So Dan's a bit like, "Oh, I've seen Bane's shit before, so I don't want to watch his responses to me."
Well, why did he block me?
Like I said, I think you might have been on a block list. That happens to me a lot.
And because you're evil.
Yeah. Because people who create block lists aren't necessarily the most rational people in the world.
That's racist.
Can we agree that block lists might be used to create an echo chamber?
I think block lists are a bad idea because I'm on one and I shouldn't be. So I'm kind of in a unique position to say they're a bad idea.
In your opinion, you shouldn't be.
No, like
maybe you should be.
It was a miscommunication.
Oh, right.
The person misread something I said, and I pointed that out, but by that time people had already started blocking me. And it's just because Twitter and its bullshit format for communication, it creates misunderstandings all the time, and I'm on a block list because of that.
But
so
I think in the case of Steve, I literally think he's just fatigued by people shitting on him, and he's just sick of it.
And I'm actually talking about that in my next video as well. And I've talked about it a bunch before. I don't judge people for their policies on blocking unless they're hypocritical about it, which, like people like TJ are, for example. But I think Steve's pretty consistent in not condemning others for blocking. So I don't call him out because I don't know what it's like to be in his position. I've got 2,500 subs, and it's bad enough for me. He's got 50,000. I can't imagine how much shit he gets. So I don't judge him for that, and I don't judge people on the other side either. If Sargon of Akkad wants to block someone, and he's got 300,000 subs or whatever it is. So
I think Steve just sees like red flags, like what that person said was a red flag. They're probably gonna be a straw manner, and they're probably not gonna listen to me, and they're probably a dick. And he could be wrong about that, and then he blocks them. So if you say certain things,
that's the problem.
Yeah.
He doesn't give people a chance. He just straight up blocks people. Like, I'm blocked. I've never had any communications with him ever.
Yeah. Well, that could
I think he assumes that everyone on our side is unreasonable, and that's not the case.
But he's had a lot of experience with people being unreasonable with him, and I think that there's like kind of like collateral damage because of that, you know.
Well, I think MRAs have had a lot of experience with unreasonable feminists. A lot of them in positions of power in the media. So should we judge all feminists that way? I don't.
Steve does.
I'm here talking to you guys.
But at the same time, you don't have 50,000 subs, so.
No, close to 20 though.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I try and put myself in other people's shoes, and I know how much crap I get on a daily basis and how annoying that is, and I know why I block people and why I don't, and I don't, like, other than the use of block lists, because that's not blocking someone, that's a different thing, that's pre-blocking people, and which I don't think is acceptable. But other than block lists, I don't judge people for it unless they condemn others for blocking people and then block people for the same reasons, like TJ does.
I don't really block people, but I blocked a guy for saying he'd dox my fiance, so I was like, all right, well, I'm blocking you then.
Yeah, and you blocked a guy for something he said to me. I kind of demanded that you did because the thing he said was so fucking heinous and evil.
Yeah, you were basically like, if you don't block that guy, we're not going to be friends anymore. And I was like, no,
basically I did, yeah. Because I'm one of your biggest champions on YouTube, and I'd mention you all the time and I'm commenting on your videos and reading your comments all the time. And if I have to see that guy who said that thing to me, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to want to do that anymore.
I need to promote your channel more now because I don't do that for shit. So
yeah.
Anyways.
Because when you're intentionally trying to be as offensive to someone as possible, you have to just deal with the fallout for that, I think. And so the fallout for that is going to be, I'm going to never want to experience that person's again.
Everybody does it differently, but the thing is, blocking and muting and all that shit, it's within the rules. It's not like doxing or threats or like, you know. So everyone just has a different policy.
But at the same time, if you're not willing to talk to the other side and listen to their point of view, I think it's fair to criticise that.
Yeah, but then that comes down to the whole other side versus individuals thing again, because if you extend that argument, like somebody hasn't listened to me, therefore they don't want to listen to feminists thing, you realize it's fallacious logically. It doesn't make sense. If you look at that argument from everybody's point of view who could potentially make that argument, suddenly it falls apart. You know, like 100 people could make that argument to me a day. Am I supposed to listen to every single one of them to cross the aisle?
No, but if you don't listen to anyone from the other side.
But that's the thing, is that I do, and that.
Oh yeah, no, well, I thought we were talking about Steve.
Oh right, yeah, okay. I don't know how much he does of that. Probably not much. He might have used to, but he might have just been too fatigued of. He's been in the game a long time as well. That's the other thing. So yeah, and you know, in my next in a video that I've got coming out hopefully soon, I'm talking about how people like Steve kind of impressed me because he was part of the YouTube atheist community, and he could have had just as many subs as all the rest of them if he'd towed the line, the ideological line of condemning the same groups they moved on to condemning after creationists. But he didn't do that. He took a stand because he disagreed with that, and he paid for that. He lost
he got so much shit for that. Yeah.
He takes shit for it every single day,
yeah.
all day, solid, 24/7.
It's true.
And he lost 80% of his subs. So potential subs.
I've seen his fallacious videos against the men's rights movement, and he does deserve some criticism.
criticism is not the same. Yeah, everybody deserves criticism though, and that's not nobody's arguing against that. It's more about the level of I guess what I'm saying is that people can accuse someone like Steve of being thin-skinned, but to make that argument, really, you can't because you don't know what he's experienced. And I would
can't the same be said for any of the bigger guys as well?
Absolutely, and that's the thing is that I don't break those guys. You know, I don't call them out for anything like that. I call them out when they say shit that doesn't make sense or is demonstrably false and things like that. But I don't call out other people for their policies on blocking or muting or.
I mean, there were some videos. There were some videos from your side making fun of the fact that Thunderfoot's father died of cancer.
Yeah, and that should be condemned.
I was completely and fully against that. I thought it was atrocious, and Bewildered Ape did it, and I was not for it. So, I mean, you shouldn't assume that we are for those things.
Oh, I don't. I didn't say that everyone on your side, but there were some.
Okay, well, we've addressed the whole reach. Well, we've addressed Tim's reaching across the aisle. I do want to briefly mention my attempts to do the same, which has mostly been centered around one person, I will admit. That's Captain Meikle. The thing about him is he's other than Tim, because Tim I've known for years before we were on the internet.
Yeah, we've known each other since high school. I mean, people
14
not
years.
know that. Like, because you were like, Tim is a close friend of Garrett or whatever. That's actually like true because.
Yeah.
We probably met when we were like 15 or something.
No, we were 18, I think.
Who's counting?
Anyway, yeah. So Tim doesn't count. Aside from the people I've met,
don't count.
Well, because I didn't meet you on YouTube. Of the people I've met on YouTube, Captain Meikle is my closest friend, and he is an MRA, and I deal with him exclusively when it comes to MRAs because he's the one I found to be the most reasonable in terms of dealing with a feminist, and he's the one who I can have the most constructive and productive conversations about the two groups and how they can work together and stuff, because a lot of MRAs just don't even want to accept the potential possibility of that happening. And with those people, what am I going to talk about? There's nothing to talk about. So,
well, I'm always happy to work with feminists who are reasonable.
And that's
and I think you agree on a lot of issues.
You have to acknowledge, though, that there are a lot of MRAs who just reject that idea out of hand, no matter who it is. Just because
as well as a lot of feminists.
Totally, absolutely true.
What was the guy's name? Sureta Yuki, I think his name was, about a year ago.
Don't know.
Put up a video.
Wait, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, I disagree with one thing he said in that video, but I thought most of it was reasonable. But he did say one thing that was totally out of line.
He put up a video asking both sides to work together, and if you looked at the comment section, there were MRAs saying this is fantastic, we need to do this, and there were MRAs, I should say MRAs and anti-feminists saying this is bullshit, I don't want to work with feminists. And then there were feminists saying all MRAs are rape apologists, blah blah blah, they can get fucked. And then there were others saying this is fantastic, we need to work together. So I'm happy to find the middle ground with reasonable people.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, okay, so yeah, so I just wanted to make, I had a hangout with Captain Meikle. I don't know if you know about this hangout, Bane, but the whole point of it was about how MRAs and feminists can work together to help achieve men's rights issues, related activism.
I actually haven't seen that one.
You should go to watch. It's about an hour and a half long. It's called A Discussion with Captain Meikle, Natalie Alford, and Blissful Melancholy. And that's the whole, we don't talk about anything else. And, Captain Meikle's the kind of guy that he's not an anti-feminist, but he will call out feminism for various things that he sees as being detrimental to men's rights causes, like the Duluth model and stuff like that. But at the same time, we can talk. It's productive. He's always, calling out feminist theorists for various things here and there, and it doesn't bother me. I can disagree. I disagree with a bunch of his opinions on sociology, for example. So I talk to him more than I talk to anyone else that I met on YouTube. And also, I mirrored.
I'm happy to have these discussions with you guys anytime. So.
Yeah. And I mirrored two videos he did that were asking for donations for men's rights issues, and I haven't actually ever mirrored a video of a video made by a feminist asking for the same, and that's an intentional decision. I decided I wouldn't mirror. I've made one, but I wouldn't mirror other feminists asking for support for feminist causes, because in the community, literally everyone else is already doing that. Like, how many people mirrored the TSF one? You did, Tim. I know Kevin did. I think Christy might have.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody. That's like, you know, that sort of stuff. It's like a self-perpetuating machine. It's going to be highlighted, and all my subscribers are going to find out about those things, because by the law of averages, they're going to be subscribed to at least one of the people who does a video about it. So, but that's not true of men's rights issues, because I don't have a men's rights channel. So I did that intentionally, and I do the same for other things as well. Like, if like some new atheist thing I thought was a worthy cause, I would potentially highlight that too, even though I totally disagree with new atheism. Yeah, so I do make an attempt to reach across the aisle. I do admit it's limited in scope to basically one guy who's now retired from YouTube. But
Is he retired? Has he?
yeah, unfortunately, that's what the video I've got is mainly coming. That I've got coming out is mainly about. Yeah. I'm making a playlist of all the. He actually doesn't have a playlist on his channel of all the videos he's done on men's rights stuff. They're split up into like 3 playlists, and some of them aren't in playlists at all. So I'm going to basically make a playlist that's going to be on my channel of all his videos on the subject that my subscribers can go and see him making arguments against circumcision and all of the stuff that you and MRAs tend to talk about. Well, most of it, not all of it, obviously. No individual is going to be talking about every single one. But yeah, so as a resource, because it's a friendly place for feminists to go. They're not going to be like watching a video about a men's rights cause, and in the middle of it, suddenly they're being demonized by the guy making the video. You know, that's not going to happen. He will demonize stuff within feminism, but as a feminist, I don't get pissed off when people talk shit about the Duluth model, because I don't care about it. I got no stake in it. You know, I think it's probably
a lot of feminists do, though. You have to admit.
Yeah, but those are mostly second wavers, older feminists, and I don't think most third wavers don't give a fuck or even know what the Duluth model is.
But it is the most widely used model, isn't it, across the Western world?
I only know about the United States when it comes to this sort of thing, and it is certainly widely used in the United States. Yeah. Most widely, I don't know, but certainly very widely
from memory,
used.
I think that's what their website claims.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so yeah, I don't have an issue with people bringing up stuff like that. When MRAs call out something that I do have a stake in, then yeah, that's obviously I will have something to say about it. But most of the time,
well, that's fair. We should be able to discuss those things, though.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so if we want to address the other thing, the calling out people on your side. It's one of them things. That's what I wanted to mostly talk about in this hangout, because as Tim does with the first thing of reaching out across the aisle, I do with the second thing. I'm pretty militant about it, to the point where I don't know of anyone who could make the claim to be more militant than I am.
Hey, I mean, no, you are more militant than me, but I have done it. So.
Yeah, no, and I said at the start that we do both the things to some degree, and I acknowledge that you do the first one a lot more than I do. So. But yeah, the word groupthink is one of my most used words on Facebook, and it's usually followed by nonsense. Groupthink nonsense. Me calling out people, feminists, social justice advocates for groupthink.
You've given me shit a whole bunch of times for not being harsh enough on people.
Yeah,
You're always like, you were too nice to blah blah blah. I can't believe you talked to that piece of shit. Like, you'll say stuff like that. And I'll be like,
when it comes to blocking, for example, I am much harsher with it when it comes to blocking feminists than I am to blocking anti-feminists. For example, with anti-feminists, they have to become uncivil in almost all cases for me to block them. And I consider things like being racist to be uncivil. Even if they're doing it with civil language, that's uncivil in my book. But yeah, so when it comes to feminists, though, I will block them for different things. Like recently I blocked this guy called Bruce Bartup for standing up for Jenny McDermott's awful shit she does, purely on the basis that he's a male feminist and she's a female feminist, and he feels weird about he feels like he should defend her just because of that. And so I blocked him.
Is that the English guy with the cap?
Yes. Yeah. So I thought that was groupthink. That was blatant groupthink. So I blocked him. I wouldn't block an anti-feminist for demonstrating groupthink. That wouldn't even occur to me to do. But I would definitely, and have done many times, block feminists for demonstrating the same. And one of your subscribers, a guy who is blocked on my channel, Felfop, he complained about, like, anytime I see him communicating about me, he's complaining about how he's blocked on my channel. But I wanted to mention to him, because I'm sure he's going to watch this, that he managed, I think he made probably about 50 or 60 comments, 70 maybe, before I blocked him, because he's an avid commenter. Obviously, he was in lots of conversations and stuff. Compare that to Bewildered Ape, a feminist who I blocked in 3 comments, who was never uncivil. I blocked him anyway, because he was saying groupthink bullshit and defending someone who shouldn't have been defended. So he's gone.
What happened to the Bewildered Ape? Is he still around?
I assume so. He's muted and blocked on every platform he could possibly communicate with me on. So
well, that's not surprising if you've watched his content, really, is it?
Yeah.
Occasionally, I won't bother watching Bewildered Ape anymore, but occasionally I check out Jenny McDermott videos just to see what drama she's mongering right now. I wonder what she's like trying to like make people notice her for at this point.
I think she had a makeup channel there for a short time.
Oh yeah.
Oh god.
But like me and Jenny McDermott were like sort of ish friends. Like we talked a bit. Everyone would tell me what a horrible person I am because,
including me,
including you. Like you're civil with Jenny McDermott or whatever. But then she did that armored skeptic false rape allegation, and I said, Jenny, this is fucking wrong. What the hell are you doing? This is insane. And she was like, go fuck yourself, and then blocked me. And I was like, what a bitch. But then now recently she's unblocked me and she likes me again. But I guess she'll see this hangout and then block me again. So whatever. But I think she's just kind of a joke, you know. I don't really like. I just see what drama she's doing. That's about it.
I think she's a professional drama whore. That is what she does.
Yeah, but
I don't like talking about her too much for risk of being doxxed.
That's a bit mean to prostitutes, I think.
In a video I've got coming out soon, I refer to her with the following terms. I call her a self-perpetuating YouTube drama generator. I call her awful, terrible, toxic, and abusive. So I'm pretty sure I've gone far enough for
You missed out on the best one. She's the spinster.
But if she wants to be nice and talk to me, I'm not going to be like, go fuck yourself. I'll just talk to her about whatever she wants to talk about. But if she says something I think is ridiculous, then I'll call her out because
you really are too soft for YouTube.
I really am. I really am. I don't like being a dick to people. Except people. If I feel like someone's crossed me personally, like with Bane, that's why I was kind of a bit combative. But with just general people, I don't really give a fuck what they do.
I'd say anybody that doxes people isn't worth anybody's time.
That's true.
Because that does affect everybody.
I'm part of this crowd of people who are vehemently against AIU, and I'm a part of a few groups, and I'm the only, like, for lack of a better term, SJW kind of person around. They call me like the resident SJW or something, you know. They're all anti-feminists. They all fucking hate feminism, but because we all don't like doxing and intimidation online, we have found something to, you know, relate about. But when we start talking about issues, then we just start disagreeing all the time. So, you know.
I don't even support AIU's doxing.
Well, of course not.
There's always collateral damage.
Yeah.
His parents apparently got swatted.
I'm against that too.
To an asshole.
No, but that's the problem. Is it's kind of like a perpetuating cycle of e-violence. That's not a real thing. But
well, this crosses over from the internet into the real world.
Well, he's made his bed, and now he has to lie in it. Of like now he's being doxxed because he's created this climate of doxing, and then eventually it comes around and bites you in the ass, you know.
Of course it does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like, for example, even though I despise Jenny McDermott, I thought when she was doxxed by Justin Templer, that was the worst dox I personally know of, like the most creepy and intimidating. Like, you know, how he was talking about how she was at an art gallery or something, and like he gave the address of the art gallery. She was at an exhibition or something. He was like tracking her somehow. It was fucking creepy as hell.
Like whatever you feel about Jenny McDermott, she can go look at art. Like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Doxing is never okay. There's never a justification for it. Even if there's actual law breaking, if you get a hold of somebody's information, you use it to sue them. You use it to press charges. You don't fucking dox them to the world because you have no idea the consequences it's going to have for them in their real life. No idea. A name doesn't tell you much about a person.
And it's just the two wrongs don't make a right thing, you know. You don't commit a crime
Sometimes it
because someone
does.
else committed a crime.
I wouldn't even dox bewildered.
Well, what I mean is that, like,
Wouldn't even dox them.
if you, like you were saying about how don't do it even if the person's committed a crime. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, because you're committing a crime because somebody else committed a crime. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Leaking a name isn't illegal in most places.
I'd dox al-Baghdadi, though. Hey, you're the leader of ISIS. I'm sorry, I'm going to dox you.
I
No
wouldn't.
offense.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't complain if he was wiped off the face of the earth by a missile, like because they found out where he was. I would be like, hey, the U.S. military doxed al-Baghdadi by killing him
dox,
with a drone strike.
That would be a total true dox.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I did just want to call attention to the fact that I go out of my way to ridiculous degrees to call out those on my side of the fence who I disagree with on ideological grounds or who do shit that crosses the line. For example, Laughing Witch is someone who I disagreed with what she did to Thunderfoot. I disagree with some of the attitude she has towards people like Jenny McDermott.
But I also disagree with what Thunderfoot did in Revenge against Laughing Witch.
Yeah,
so I
of
think
course.
everyone was fucking wrong.
Yeah, that was a mess. That whole situation
total
was a fucking mess. Yeah. And yeah, you just call everyone out involved and move on. And, you know, I'm friends on Facebook with a lot of... It's not like she hasn't been doxxed already, but still.
Oh, there you go.
By like 6 different people. I don't agree with that whole thing that we're like, he's been doxxed, so it's fine thing, though.
No, if they want to remake themselves private as much as
Indeed.
possible, they have the right to do that.
That's not the same as like Sargon telling people publicly of his own volition that his name is Carl. You know, that's not the same.
Yeah.
Being
Although
doxxed in the past.
The thing with Laughing Witch is, though, that she actually doxed herself in a video. That was the
By
strange
accident,
part.
yeah, she accidentally doxed herself. I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah, like she's an interesting case in the whole groupthink, you know, problem because I used to think when she had her channel and she would put out videos and stuff, I would be a bit sort of cautious about how far she would take things ideologically sometimes, and like in terms of tribalistic, you know, in-group, out-group kind of thinking. But at the same time, she did bring some important things to light that some people have been doing and saying. Like Kevin Logan, you know, the people who sit through hours and hours of people's videos to present information to other people who don't have the, you know, time or tolerance to do that, you know.
But I remember back when that whole Laughing Witch thing was happening, you were saying how atrocious it was because Laughing Witch is like such a good feminist or something, and then I disagreed with you, and I was all like,
Well,
I don't know, she's
said.
kind of dodgy or something.
That's not what I said. What I said was the exact same thing I'm saying now, is that some of her videos that she made in some of her playlists were talking about things, were showing clips of anti-feminists saying things I didn't know that they'd said.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, you know, like...
I didn't even see any of her videos or anything. So.
Like the people who went and read Rush V's books, you know, and said, look how fucking rapey this guy is, if you go and actually read his books. That stuff I think is important.
Yeah.
And even though it's just about someone's character, I think, you know...
But the way I feel about Laughing Witch now is she's kept her head down and she's just like trying to do her own thing, so I think people should just leave her alone, you know? That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, she has intentionally decided not to make a new channel and to just sit it out, and I think that's fine. That's fair.
But people are still harassing her business. I think that's fucked up. They should just get over
Are
it.
they?
And
I thought people would have forgotten about it by now.
no, they're still leaving like psycho reviews. It's just never ending.
Law of averages, man. So how many subs does TF have? Like 700,000 or something? There's going to be a good fair few real weird people in there.
And they just can't let it go. They're like, I've got to go back to the business and leave a bad review again. That's my 17th one.
I reckon you could probably do a formula calculating this by going by channels like Bearing, who have consistent downvote brigading. Like, how many? He's got 100 and something thousand subs, and his downvote brigade is about 3,000, or it's between 3,000 and 4,000, right, Tim? The consistent downvotes his targets get. Yeah. So what's that? Based on that calculation and how ideologically driven his content is, I think you could probably deduce how many people in the average YouTube subscriber pool are lunatics.
People also said that's a tiny percentage of his subscribers. That was another defense that they had. But I thought, but they are unusually active, even though it's a small part. You know, because it's not.
Has she changed the name of her business?
Oh, I don't know. Away from Laughing Witch Productions to something else.
I have no
Well,
idea.
it's not that hard. I mean, I own a small business, so it's not that hard to change the name. And once you change the name, it sort of disappears. It's hard to find,
Yeah.
especially if you change it to something quite different.
That is good thinking. Maybe she should have tried that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if people are harassing her, it's fucking old news now, guys.
Yeah.
It's
People are still
time
doing
it's time we all moved on.
I mean, just because I've seen her on Facebook saying, "Look at these new reviews," and like it's real recent, like just over the past couple of weeks. You know, it's like, wow.
And I think it's the same. It goes both ways. To demonize Thunderfoot for what he did in that mess constantly is also a little bit, old hat. But luckily, in that case, Thunderfoot's constantly doing terrible things, so there's always a new thing to call out.
Yeah, but writing a letter to his employer saying that he has an army of Nazis or something.
Yeah,
I did read the letter, but I can't remember it. Yeah,
I was against the letter from the very start. I said that I didn't like it.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter what she wrote in the letter. The fact that she sent it is enough to demonize. Like that is.
If I was him, I would have sued her for
He could have.
slander, like flat out.
Well, responding by sending you not like they always have this like veil of like I'm not really sending them, it's just like there's a separation there or whatever. But having all of your subs go to harass a business for like years or whatever, I think that's the wrong approach. If it was just like, okay, well,
But
I will give you a civil suit
I don't remember him saying go harass her.
Actually,
I know, they always shit.
No, in this specific... Normally, that is true. People don't actually go and do shit. But in that specific instance, he did have one video where he briefly said one thing that was basically like, go and get her.
I bet it was very tongue-in-cheek, like...
It was said in a sort of cheeky way, but that doesn't...
Her business has a page. Now, if someone was to go and review on there...
It was like that. Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, that's basically what happened.
Oh, I never told them
for me to be mad at him because she attacked his livelihood.
Right.
Just because she failed, right? This is what I was saying earlier. Sometimes two wrongs aren't necessarily wrong. I would say so. Like, if you're asking for it.
Yeah, but suing her wouldn't have been a wrong. It would have been a right.
No, it would have been. But he chose a different avenue.
Yeah.
It hit her in the wallet exactly the same way.
They are in different countries too, remember?
That's true.
I'm saying I disagree with
suing
his
even
response.
more difficult.
With the internet, though, there are ways to do it. If it's done over the
internet. Response, that's slander. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, but
certainly
suing her
Americans-
is very difficult from another country.
Well, I don't know how it works the other way around, but certainly Americans can sue people in other countries for slander over the internet. They've got
Doesn't
so
mean
much.
they'll ever see money.
Maybe not, but they do have
Even
so
if
much
they
money
win.
to play with the world court that they can pretty
Anyway.
much. I don't know if it works the other way around, but anyway.
So is Bane going to issue an apology for saying that we're in an echo chamber now? Make a video.
No, I admit you're not in an echo chamber, and look, I'll admit that that video was designed to get your attention after you left certain comments. And it worked. So I got to apologise for that.
Oh, come on. I don't get the credit for any of this. Jesus.
Now I feel
Look at me, I'm
uncomfortable
bringing
because it seems like
people
we get
together
along too
everywhere.
well. We should be fighting more right now. Like, this is
Already.
Oh,
not
no, that's terrible.
Plenty of time.
That's terrible.
What do you guys know? Do you know like Spinosauruskin or whatever?
Yeah, I'm
I
good friends with him.
sometime. And I was like, I'm gonna own Bane or something. Or I said Bane's gonna own me, and then he was like, Bane is a softie in Hangouts. So, is that true?
That just means you're a good person. I think anyone who's overly confrontational in Hangouts just gives off a vibe like they're a terrible human being.
Yeah.
No, I never am unless I have to be. So
I mean, Bearing was nice in the Hangout I did with him, but he was very kind of like, I've got a message that I'm trying to push, so he kept trying to talk over me and, get his message, which is, I guess, is fine, it's not a big deal to me, but yeah. I know, Bane, you got to have some kind of forceful message to put out there. What is it?
I don't think we're going to disagree too much on men's rights stuff. I mean, there are probably issues that I don't think are important that you do, but there's certainly issues that we both think are important.
I think it's just, it's a matter of like us complaining or having complaints about the way the MRA goes about it, not necessarily the issues. Like if you say like men are committing suicide at a much higher rate, I think we all agree and we all think that's bad. And as a man, and I've had issues with depression and stuff, I think that's a big deal. But when they're talking about that issue, but it all seems to come back to, look at these feminists, I fucking hate these feminists, fuck the feminists suck, feminists aren't doing the right thing.
Can I bring? Are we moving on to the second part of the show?
Yeah, we might as well. I think.
Okay.
I can bring up a couple of points I wanted to ask.
Absolutely.
So I've got some notes here. Hold on a second.
God,
Entertain.
I wrote notes too.
I have no notes. I don't know about Little Miss.
Who needs notes when you have alcohol?
Garrett,
That's true.
In your video, a message to the men's rights movement. About
Can I just quickly interject before you say anything about that video? I have said a lot of times on my channel since that video is probably the worst one I've ever done. And I haven't deleted it, but that's kind of because I have a policy of not deleting videos or tweets or anything.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I think generally, if I make a bad argument, people should have a right to see that, to get a good judge,
that's fair.
How I am at making arguments. And in that video, it was unscripted, and I didn't plan it at all, really. And I was trying to communicate two different things with the way that with the audio of it and what was in the visuals, which was confusing. Because I made the audio off the cuff, and then by the time I was sitting down to edit it, I was like, okay, I've got to actually put some facts in here, and then the facts conflicted with some of the stuff I said in the video, but in the audio. But I'd already recorded the audio, and I just wanted to put it out.
Well,
so
there was another thing you said in it. You said that one of the issues that feminists have with MRAs is we go around saying that 90% of rape accusations are false. Who exactly is saying that from our side?
Well, no, I've heard quite a number of people dispute the 2 to 8% figure that feminists often bring up.
The interesting thing is the image you put in that
had the actual numbers. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and the thing is, those figures actually say 12%.
Right. Yeah.
False accusation. So the 2 to 8% is in dispute anyway.
Yeah, and that's totally fair.
But the point is, can you name someone on our side who has claimed that 90% of rape cases are false? I'll name one. It was Angry. It was Angry Harry, and I called him out for it in one of the video responses to you. But that's the only one I've ever come across.
I have never seen a anti-feminist thought leader say that, but I've seen a lot of commenters say shit like that. And I know you're not responsible for the opinions of your commenters, but it's there nevertheless. And I think it's fair for me to point it out that I do see people say stuff like that. And people saying drunk sex isn't rape and stuff, when that is one of the most unnuanced things you could possibly say. There's a lot more to it than that.
Not always.
Sometimes it is. Yeah, but that's not what they say.
Sometimes it is. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, and that I call out lack of nuance wherever I see it, and I actually go further out of my way to call it out when feminists. Well, actually, no. New atheists.
You can't judge the men's rights movement based on comments on YouTube videos.
No,
can you?
But
you can't. You can only judge the people who say that stuff. Yeah.
One thing I want to ask you, Garrett, is where did you get the 2.8% figure? Because I actually went back and I watched Bane's video on that, which was his first response to you. I actually watched it a couple of days ago, and he said that you got the 2 to 8% figure from this I don't know, random feminist who wrote this book or something.
Brown Miller.
Is that it?
The 2%. Yeah, the 2% was. I think it was from the 80s. Someone gave a speech in New York and. Yeah. She then related in a book.
But I looked it up, and the FBI has the 2 to 8% figure. So where'd the FBI get it from?
Well, I don't know. Where did you look it up? Because it's been that
been
thrown around a lot.
I just went to the wiki and looked up false rape allegations and looked through all the different figures, and the 2.8% one lined up with what the FBI had found. But I don't know where Garrett got it. So.
One thing I would say is that to quote the 2 to 8 spectrum is not to say that it's 2%. I can see why someone would get that, would criticize it based on that, but that's not. It's not saying it's somewhere between 2 and 8 isn't saying it's 2.
But I still got
probably nowhere near 2. It's probably more like 8.
But I still got that question for you, Garrett, because I don't know where you got it. Where'd you get it from?
It's just a thing that's. Well, I know the 8% study. I don't know where I didn't know where 2% came from. But when
Well,
I say
let's
2 to
go-
8%,
let's
I'm
go
more
with
saying
8.
8% than 2%.
Normally you put references in your videos, so it's like, oh, I'm
well,
sure he's got a
exactly, and
reference
that
to
video
this.
is incredibly lazy.
I couldn't find a reference to what you said, so it's
No,
like,
yeah.
okay.
I put the image up to
But I
get
did
the...
see 2 to 8% by the FBI in their studies, so whatever.
I generally think FBI's figures are pretty accurate,
I don't
from
fucking
what I've seen.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyways, but Bane, you then
Well, hold on.
you kind of
Let's-
just assumed
let's-
where he got it from, then, didn't you?
Well, I was going by an article which was pulling apart the commonly used 2 to 8%. But let's say,
Right.
for argument's sake, that it is 8%, right? That's only cases which are proven, isn't it? It's not the cases which aren't proven. And one of my problems with your side is that they assume that if we prove 8%, then the other 92% must all be true. And that's illogical.
That goes both ways, though. People say that if you don't report it, that means it didn't happen, which is completely false.
I don't agree with that, but
Yeah.
you can't prosecute something which isn't reported, though, can you?
No, but you can study it. You can get
Yeah,
the
yeah,
numbers.
I agree, and I agree with that. Well,
Yeah.
but you have to also agree that how you study it is important, and the
Oh,
questions
totally.
you ask.
Yeah, if I've read
But-
at this
but if
point
we-
16
if we can
studies.
if we can stick with those cases which are reported, let's say that there's 8% which are proven to be false, and let's, for argument's sake, say that there's 8% which are proven to be true, right? That means the remainder is unknown, and that's always been my position. That
Right,
You can't
yeah.
claim that
But
we know either way.
but you can still
It's a
get a
dark
sense of
number.
things by looking at studies in the aggregate.
Yeah, and I guess my comment would be it isn't 8 both ways. The numbers for I've read 16 rape prevalence studies now, and based on what I've read, I mean, if I just take the general public and discount the campus-specific ones, the rate seems to be in the general public maybe around 12 to 16%, right?
You just have to look at general trends by looking at things in the aggregate, because there's some studies which have like ridiculous statistics that I've seen, like 60-something% of rape accusations are false or something.
Yeah, TJ and Thunderfoot both, I'm pretty sure, have quoted that at one
There's
point.
some crazy fucking
Yeah,
studies
no,
out
I
there.
agree that you can't stand on that. There's no way to know that it's 60%.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
It's
and
like when you go on the
crazy.
wiki, you can rank the studies by what percentage they say is false, and some of them are like 80% are false or something. I'm like, who the fuck? Like, who made that study? You know, like, yeah. That's basically the all women are evil lying bitches study. That one.
Well,
So-
can we agree though that in most cases we don't know one way or the other?
yes, I would only say that when I talk about false rape accusations, I don't generally talk about it in terms of trying to know the actual number, because nobody does. I would
sense
only
of
do
things,
it by ranking different types of similar crimes. That's always my approach. Is he said, she said crimes. You look at muggings, burglaries, all that kind of stuff, where the main evidence is witness testimony, victim and witness testimony.
Funny,
If you look
because
at-
Bane talked about that in the video too.
Yeah, if you look at that.
Yeah, I've
Rape
actually got
lower.
the stats here. Do we want to go through them? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
British or American stats? Because they're kind of
These are the ones. It's the image you used in
Yeah,
the
so that's
video.
British. Yeah, that
Yeah.
image. I was a little bit disingenuous there, because my normal sort of policy on my channel is to always use American statistics, and if I don't, I point it out. And that time I didn't. That's a British statistic and
You
not an
liar.
American statistic.
But these are interesting. So it might be interesting to have a chat about it if that's all right. If you don't
Yeah,
mind.
sure. Yeah. I mean,
All right.
the
So
way- no, go. Sorry.
I put the link in the side chat if someone wants to screen share.
Could do.
Doop-a-doop-doo.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I do it and end up
I'm-
doxing myself.
Yeah, I was just about to say
Did
I'm
you?
always paranoid about doxing myself with. So
Yeah. I could do it. Hold on.
Why are you guys secret? I mean, it's your business, but I'm just wondering.
I made a video all about it.
Oh,
And
you
it's
did?
so
Oops.
long. It's like so long.
Oh, damn.
About 3 minutes.
I could tell you, but I'd have
3
to do it.
minutes? That's almost
It's a running joke.
0.00001% of Bane series.
I
Alright.
think the longest video on my channel is 5 minutes. I am very to the point. You could probably
God.
watch all of my videos in the time it would take you to watch half of one of Bane's.
So Sargon could
Okay.
watch about 1/5 of that.
Garrett, could you scroll up a bit?
Sure. Yeah. Hold on. I'll just keep talking so you can keep seeing it.
Well, if we all click on Garrett, it will stay on Garrett.
I can also just override all of your feeds as well if you want.
All right. So this bit here. So just let me click on another window because it's larger here. So we've got 12% false allegations, right? And if we combine that with offender not identified, that's 1/4 of all allegations taken care of straight away.
Right, because people don't make false rape claims when they're not identifying the specific individual, because that conflicts with the motivation for making a false rape claim in the first place.
But if we're talking about the court system being biased against rape victims, which is often the claim made, well, just by combining those two statistics, we cut out 1/4.
I've never ever claimed that the court system itself is biased against rape victims. What I say is that defense lawyers take advantage of stuff to do with rape culture, rape myths, to sway juries into having reasonable doubt where none actually exists. And I could make a very good case on that. The other thing I would say is that judges are too light on their sentencing with certain types of rapists, athletes,
but isn't it a common
athletes.
argument that so few rape cases get to court?
That's more about the police than the court system. You could definitely make a solid case that American police are biased against rape victims, very much so. But no, I wouldn't say the prosecution and DA what's it called, district attorneys and stuff are. I mean, maybe they are. I don't know, but I've not made that case.
Okay. So we can also look at insufficient evidence. You would agree that if there's insufficient evidence, it shouldn't go to trial?
That would they be? So that's the thing. Is that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like people can distort that by taking advantage of misconceptions on the behalf of juries and people like that. That there is doubt where there isn't any, where the evidence is sufficient when it shouldn't be. For example,
this is before trial. So
yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Though is police. Like, for example, there's a thing that happens where a trend you can notice in American police departments is a rape victim will come forward. She'll make a claim. They will then discount the claim, not investigate it at all, then end up maybe even charging her with making a false claim, even though they didn't investigate it either way. And normally in crimes, the basic default position of the police is a skeptical belief in the victim's claims, right? So you assume they're accurate and investigate as such. And then if you go along and you get evidence to the contrary, you factor that in. But they're supposed to approach it like that. And with rape victims, they often don't. They assume.
I'd be surprised at that, but I'm willing to look at evidence if you've got some.
I don't have statistics on it because it's a hard thing to study in the quantitative sense. But I have qualitative data about it in terms of a bunch of case studies. There's a book called Asking for It, which is a rape culture book that mentions probably, I think it's about 16 or 20 case studies of victims coming forward and some of them getting charged with making a false claim and stuff like that.
I reviewed that book on my channel, by the way.
So when, just out of curiosity, when was it written?
Because it was written this year, was it 2015? Yeah, in May, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Although the author is a feminist, so
she is a feminist. Yeah, she normally writes on fat shaming. That's her main thing. But she spent about 5 years researching the rape.
That's not good.
Anyway, yeah. So she basically brings up a couple of dozen or 20 or so case studies of women getting totally mistreated by the police while making false rape claims. And the most common complaint is not actually testing the rape kit. And that's pretty serious, even just without the whole having evidence and not examining it thing, which is totally corrupt. From the point of view of a rape kit, it's even worse because rape kits are extremely invasive. They take about 4 hours, and they get right up inside the women's vaginas and stuff with cameras and mirrors and all kinds of stuff, and they comb the entire body, all of the skin, for skin flakes and all that stuff, and they have to stand on a tarp, and it's
then they
horrible.
go put it in a warehouse where no one ever
and then it goes and gets shipped to a warehouse where it sits for 14 years,
So why does it sit there for 14 years?
2 reasons. One is because they don't believe the testimony, so they don't bother to allocate the resources to test the kit, and then the other one is just because they have a massive backlog because there's too many rapes. Well,
Yeah, lack of it was it was a big part of it was lack of resources because they're not investing in the departments to actually look at the rape kits.
Exactly, and in that way, it's a systemic issue, not a guys on the ground doing it case by case. It's the people making the decisions.
They need to put some money into it in order to
Well,
do that.
they need to no. Well, what they need to do is they need to replace the people who allocate resources elsewhere by people who aren't going to do that, because there's places in America that have just outrageous backlogs at this point. And normally, what happens is a journalist will come in and find out about it, make a story about it on 60 Minutes or whatever, and then suddenly people care, and then they test them all. Like there was one, I can't remember, it was Seattle or something, where they tested 14,000 in one big go. And then convicted like 9,000 rapists or whatever.
There was an example in the book about a rapist who raped again because they didn't
test his kit. Yeah.
They didn't know that he had a prior because they tested the rape kit many years later and they're like, oh, this guy's raped someone in the past and we let him go. Whoops.
Yeah.
And
so
then
how do you improve the system then? Because I don't think anyone wants to see rapists get away, but my concern is the erosion of due process.
Right.
Because often we hear a woman's word should be enough, and I don't think it is.
Well, it would partly be an investment, I think, in those areas of law enforcement where you can actually discover the real evidence instead of just ignoring it. And that requires work. It
requires socio-cultural change primarily, because what you need to do is to have the jurors who can't be swayed by things like she got pregnant and it's impossible to get pregnant when you get raped, so she can't be telling the truth.
The female body has a way of shutting that all down, to be fair.
Exactly. That is the sort of stuff that I rail against because it's demonstrably false. But lawyers say that shit all the time. You look at the way their rhetoric and when they're addressing the jury and stuff, it's amazing the stuff they get away with saying. Like, she was lubricated, according to the rape kit, during the rape, so she must have been enjoying it, therefore it can't have been rape. It's like, no,
she had no hymen.
Natural human reaction.
Lawyers aren't people. Why are we talking about lawyers like they're people?
Lawyers aren't people. That's going to be the controversial takeaway from this hangout.
And I don't even blame the lawyers. I blame the fact that the society is the way it is, and they can get away with doing that. They can capitalize on it. What needs to change?
You want to know the really shitty thing? Is they make more money when they win. They have even more incentive to lie on behalf of their client to win because they will make more money.
Even public defenders, or you just mean private lawyers?
Both.
Both.
Well, public defenders get a higher profile and are more likely to be hired by a private firm if they win cases. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Johnny Cochran.
So
total tangent.
But my question is this consistent? If we're talking about America, then surely there are pockets in America which what you're saying is obviously true. Let's say the more religious areas, but would it be the same right across the board? Do you think?
No, and that is
anything consistent in America. To be
honest. No, but that's my point. We often hear
like
that we live in a rape culture, and everywhere is a rape culture, but.
But I assume you saw my Armored Skeptic video where I debunked that, right? That's not what feminists are saying when they talk about rape culture. It's like gun culture. Bringing up gun culture in America isn't saying everybody owns a gun. It's just saying there's too many guns, And that's the same thing with rape culture. It's not saying that everybody believes in rape myths. Like everybody would, if you did a survey saying, can women get pregnant from being raped, you wouldn't get 100% of people saying no.
I made a video about rape culture. And I said that I don't think we live in a rape culture because I think that's somewhat arbitrary.
Well, that phrasing though is it's
phrasing, yeah.
It's not.
But
it's not.
You
how you
agree
talk about
it's another abused term then?
Well, I mean, people talk about it in the wrong way in terms of it is what it is it's a sociological shorthand for a model, right? So it's a way that sociologists and other people like cultural anthropologists can talk to each other about a thing they both study in a quick and easy way without going into all the, so they say this rape culture thing, and they do it all across the board in the social sciences. It's just how it is. But people from the outside looking in see that as reductionist, and it is reductionist, but it's just the way that people in an in-group situation where they all have the same level of knowledge talk to each other. If you don't have that level of knowledge, then it can be totally misleading.
I just think it's funny because... Oh, sorry, cutting you off now.
No, go on.
Well, I was just everybody pretty much agrees that rape culture is a thing. They just disagree about where and to what extent, basically.
Yeah, and like
I would somewhat agree with that.
And saying
Like,
that,
I think everyone agrees that there's a rape culture in prison, for example.
and yeah, and that's
Sure.
the other thing, is that's why it's reductionist. Because if you were actually going to be talking about it in terms of being 100% accurate, what you would say is rape cultures, right? Because there's multiple different variations of things where you can notice trends that aren't connected to each other, right? And just saying a rape culture makes it sound like it's universally pervasive and universally applicable and doesn't manifest in these totally different ways. So, yeah, saying we live in a rape culture isn't accurate. But saying that rape cultures exist in the society we live in, that's accurate.
And saying something is a rape culture does not contradict with saying that all of society is a rape culture. Like, you can have, like you just said, that cultures. Like
yeah, well,
prison,
exactly.
for example.
The term,
and not even every prison. Like some prisons wouldn't have a rape culture. Like, it really, you know.
the misleading word is. It's has. It's not is a rape culture, because that makes it sound like this defines the whole society.
Yeah, there's more things in society than just people raping each other. So by definition, it doesn't make sense.
Like bring it back to gun culture. There's people in America who are totally manically opposed to guns, so they don't live in a gun culture in the same way that the gun nuts do, right? They do in one sense, in a passive sense, but not in an active sense. They reject it, and obviously it's the same with rape. There's anti-rape activists, so it's obviously not 100% universally pervasive in terms of.
The only way people in America express themselves is through guns. They have no other way of expressing themselves. Like when you're making a speech, you're just like.
And so, yeah, I totally admit that the way some people talk about things from the social sciences with regard to feminism and stuff is wrong.
Yeah.
But that's not the academics' fault, you know. That's people looking from the outside in and having misconceptions. Now, if they don't,
those people from the outside looking in, though, are usually feminists, aren't they? They're in the media. They're
exactly.
On
they're
the
a
internet,
big part of it. Yeah, they're a big
So how do we fix that? I mean, if a word is overused too much, if it's misused too much, it becomes meaningless, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, apart from to the people who actually study it, they will keep using it. But to society at large, yeah, it loses some of its meaning. Absolutely. And the way you fix it is the same way you fix all of this kind of problem: is misinformation on the internet. You know, trying to encourage people to check their sources when they post shit on social media, stuff like that. That needs to go way up, because at the moment there's just almost on a daily basis I see people putting out stuff that just is flagrantly false on social media, you know. And they get pissy when you correct it too. Sorry.
Christy Winters just sent me a message. If you see this during your live stream, the graphic has been on screen for about 10 minutes now.
Oh, right. Yes, true. Sorry. I always do that.
Stop criticizing us, Christy. Jesus. It's disgusting.
Yeah, so I think, the internet has a misinformation problem. Absolutely. That is universally applicable to every issue and every subject, but it certainly definitely manifests itself in feminism. And yeah, it's annoying as hell.
But when our side disagrees with some of that misinformation or misinterpretation, we tend to get called misogynists and rape apologists and a whole host of other things.
I think a lot of the time for that, it's because of people like me complaining about the lack of qualifying phrases and stuff. That the way people, anti-feminists often talk about it is like they're blaming the individuals who aren't necessarily actually to blame, and so it's a little bit too general. And I don't like it when people talk in those kinds of vague ways, like at all, especially when they're talking about me. Like I get a lot of people coming on my channel and going, Garrett's dishonest and he's making false claims, but they don't say anything specific. So okay, so you just a vague general criticism about like random words, negative words about me. How am I supposed to argue that? You know?
Yeah.
That's one of my criticisms of Steve Shives and his criticism of the men's rights movement. He makes a lot of general statements with no evidence to back it up.
Right.
Like what?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I've seen those videos.
It's been a while since I've seen some of his videos, but it'd be nice if he gave some examples.
I just think it's funny when people tell me that he's my best friend, where it's like I haven't even seen very many of his videos at all. I've seen like 5, I guess.
I would just say that criticism is a criticism of the format he uses rather than his approach to men's rights, though, because you could say that about all the 5 stupid things videos. They're very brief. They're like 5 minutes long. He usually, I think when I was watching through them, I think I did a rough estimation that he spends about 45 seconds on each point that he makes. So yeah, they're all like that.
I feel like I like Steve, and I have no like real problem with the guy, and he's never really said many things that really piss me off too much. But it's not because of like who he is. It's just like that's just my experience with him. So when people tell me that he's like the devil, I'm like, well, I don't really have the experience of him being the devil and being the worst person in the world. So I'll take your word for that, I guess, and just keep in mind that he's a horrific human being. But I can't just like listen to what
human being.
No, not you. I just mean like heaps of people fucking hate.
I get comments like, because I did a response to Steve Shives, and I have a shout out from him in my channel trailer. So I get comments from people demonizing him, and some of the stuff they say is just the most sort of hyperbolic, like demonize. This is like you're watching The Exorcist. It's
like,
some of the stuff is insane.
Okay, so you really, 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 really hate Steve. I'll just take that into consideration. But I can't just suddenly agree with you because I don't have the experience that he's that hateable. I guess it pisses people off. He blocks them and shit. But you know. Whatever,
I did
a guy. Like, he's not
I did a
AIU
response to him, calling out like a thing he said that I disagreed with, and I'm going to be mentioning him again in a video I've got coming out.
But you see, I don't even watch his videos enough to know what I disagree with him about.
I watched my way through his Stupid Things videos in a big playlist at one point, but other than that, yeah, I don't really watch him that much.
So that's the problem, is we can't have much of an echo chamber if we don't even watch the videos of the people we are supposedly like best friends with. So,
yeah.
And I don't have any specific problems with Steve. I just don't really watch his stuff very much, to be honest. So.
And like, if we give a shout out or something to someone else, fair enough. If you criticize that person, like I did a shout outs video. If you want to criticize any of the people that I've given shout outs to, and by association me, I guess that's fair enough because I shouted them out. But I haven't shouted out Steve Shives, and I don't think I would because I generally want to shout out smaller channels. So yeah.
The only real shout out I've ever done was to Skeptic Feminist, and recently we just got into a massive fight. So, so there you go. Like, can't fucking win. Anyways, Bane, you said you were going to talk about that, right? Like how I was defending child rape or something.
Yeah, well tell me your side of that, and we'll discuss it.
Well,
we pretty much covered it in that hangout, really. Yeah. That we thought the TSF's criticisms of Foxy Jezebel weren't fair. It's not that it isn't fair to criticize what she said, but what they said in criticism of her wasn't fair. That was what we were.
I was just saying that Christy Jezebel, even if she's wrong, had a different perspective based on being his friend, may have blinded her to the situation, but it's not like she thinks that he actually really did it. So how can she defend child rape if she doesn't think it even happened? So she just she had her own side.
Bias on her part.
I mean, reading the comments, she's probably blinded by friendship. I admitted that.
But that's the thing, is that that's not child rape apologism, like apologetics. In order to be an apologist for something, you can't say it's not happening. Like in this specific instance, like if she was going to be a rape apologist, she would be saying it's okay what they did. That's not what she was saying. She said
she could say like, oh, I know Hannibal did it, but it's not that big a deal.
Exactly.
That's what she'd be saying.
Not in that much of a straightforward way, because people.
But she was more like, no, he was set up. It didn't happen. He's my friend. Leave him alone. Which she's still got a blind side. She's still wrong. If she's wrong, I think she's probably wrong. But I just think TSF didn't think about it. They just went on the attack. And
it seemed like it was emotionally motivated. Like they had an emotional reaction to what she said.
Well, I think they feel very strongly about that particular issue.
Yeah, and that's fine. But the thing is, you have to actually interpret what the person's saying accurately.
Yeah, you have to cover it in a fair way. That's all.
Yeah, and the reason
you saw it more as an attack on her rather than.
I saw it more as like they didn't cover all the information. They didn't explore what she actually thinks what she was saying. They just basically said she thinks child rape is okay.
Yeah, and if you compare that to, say, like the response video I did to Sargon of Akkad, where I'm presented with occasions of him being dishonest in his video, I don't say that he's definitely doing this on purpose. I say I don't know whether this is a mistake.
Sargon called me a liar because I made one mistake in my bearing video, and he said...
Exactly, he said that you did that on purpose. Yeah, whereas I never make that claim.
Can you read fucking minds, you piece of shit? You're fucking asshole.
Exactly. Yeah, so when I cover that stuff, I'm like, maybe this person did it by accident, maybe this was an intentional lie. I don't know. It could be either. But that's not how they covered what she said at all.
Yeah, they just said she loves child rape.
Yeah, literally, they called her a child rape apologist.
How the fuck do they know that?
So what's been her response since?
Oh, she just didn't want to deal with it.
Well, basically.
Yeah.
You just stop talking about it, and I kind of get that.
Me and Skeptic Feminist argued about it for pages and pages, and then she posted like, "Oh my God, are you guys still arguing? What's going on?" She's like, "I don't like. Why are you spending all your time on this?" It's like, if you guys want to argue this, fine, but she didn't even want to talk about it. So, yeah.
And one of the things that I think I mentioned in that hangout is that I don't think, and this was an example of like what her stance on it was ideologically motivated in terms of she was defending him because they agree on social issues or anything like that. I think it was because they were friends, and so like if she was. It would be groupthink if she was like, this person's on my side of the aisle, I must defend them. But I don't think that's what it was.
There's even been times when like people were like, Garrett is this, Garrett is that, you shouldn't be friends with Garrett and all this shit. And I'm like, well, but I know him and he's my friend, so I get to stand up for him. And if I thought he was that kind of horrible person, then I'd agree with you. But I know him, I don't think he's like that. So friendship can blind you to, because I don't know, Garrett, if you are that kind of horrible guy, maybe you are. But if you were that kind of horrible person, maybe I'd be blinded to it because I'm your friend. I don't know.
Well, I think we call each other out on stuff all the time. Like I think over the last year, almost a year since we created our channels in November. In that time, I can count like a dozen like pretty major disagreements we've had.
You even blocked me briefly.
I did block you once, yeah.
Really?
For one day, yeah.
Then you unblocked me and you said sorry and that you'd overreacted.
Yeah, well, because somebody else did something that pissed me off and I was angry.
Yep.
Yeah, but
I had to send you an email like explaining.
And I got slammed for that as well because what happened was it was on Christy Winter's channel. I was in an argument with some guy and he was like, post evidence for your claims, and I posted it and he read it and was like, it doesn't say what you said it says, and I was like, but it does, and it did, but he was just flat out saying it didn't, and I got so annoyed by that because how do you argue that? What am I supposed to do? Like, he's just saying it doesn't say what it does say. So it's like, yeah, I didn't know what to do, so I lost my temper and I called him a bunch of names. And then Sargon of Akkad posted it on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, and he said you were triggered, yeah.
Yeah, and he took all the like insulting bits out of literally took them out of the context of the comment and put them all in one thing.
And
so
then I contacted you, I messaged you, and then I was like, dude, are you okay? You seem a bit unhinged.
Yeah.
It's like, you look like you're kind of losing it.
And I had lost it, man, because I didn't know I don't know how to respond to that. Like, you post the thing when they ask for evidence proving the thing you're saying, and they're like, it doesn't prove that.
I thought you were having a breakdown.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I was like,
It's an
are you okay?
tactic.
Should I come over and see if you're alright? Like, fuck.
Yeah, so I mean, Tim and I disagree, and one of the things we disagree about most is this whole groupthink thing. Like I think he tolerates some stuff within our camp too much.
True.
And he thinks that I don't reach out across the aisle enough. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they both fell asleep, to be honest.
No, we're still.
Oh, Bane's still there. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is Little Miss real drunk by now? Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, come on. I'm not a lightweight.
I don't know what you're drinking, though.
Look,
Hard cider.
It's not strong stuff.
Tim's
I
been
saved
invited.
the rum for bar.
Tim's been invited to do hangouts with people on the other side and said yes in scenarios where I definitely would have said no. Like when Sargon asked me. Sargon asked you and you said yes, Tim?
Yeah, but then he never got back to me again.
Right, yeah. Well, he asked me and I said no.
He
And
followed me on Twitter. We had a conversation about doing a hangout, and I said I'm free the next week, and then he unfollowed me, and we haven't talked.
Right, I see.
So why would you say no to Sargon? Just out of curiosity.
It was because of the way his fans act, and I didn't want to invite that into my life because, I don't make any money out of YouTube. It's totally a side project, and if it's going to be if the experience of being on YouTube is going to be annoying or intolerable to me, then I'm not going to do it. If I was making money out of it and this was my job, I would have said yes. But basically, I just didn't want to deal with the kinds of people some of his fans tend to be. The Sargoons, I call them, the people that do downvote brigading and stuff. I don't understand hate watchers. People who automatic downvote, stuff like that. It irritates me, and I wouldn't turn my voting off or disable my comments or anything, but it still pisses me off. And
well, the way I look at it, you could reach a bigger audience and maybe sway some of those people with your arguments.
Yeah, but the thing is that the reasonable ones tend to seek that stuff out on their own. Like, I get a lot of people, anti-feminist types, watching my videos. New ones come in every day and comment and stuff, and yeah, I got no issue with that.
There are some commenters that are literally impossible to get through to,
Oh,
no matter
totally.
what
Yeah.
you say. Like
In
there's
any
this
ideological
particular guy who always comments on my channel, and to be honest, I don't even bother reading his comments anymore. Like, I was like, he left a huge comment, and I just was like, I can't be fucked reading that. Because I've talked to him so many times, and he just won't listen, so there's no fucking point. You know, I'm
I
not going to
spent
block
10
him.
years
Not gonna
stuck in
delete
the
him.
comments section.
Yeah, just bad, you know.
The one that I get a lot is that when you have the same argument over and over again with different people, and you get wary of that pretty fast. Like, you know,
That's why I prefer to really spend my time doing videos rather than engaging in the comments section a lot. I'd prefer to put out a detailed video expressing my opinion rather than repeat it, 50 or 100 times in the comment section to different people.
Yeah. And I think my issue there is because my channel is young and I haven't had the time yet to put out all those videos, and I've got so many that I need to make. Like, for example, is one that I want to put out a video putting up arguments that are commonly made by anti-feminists that are demonstrably wrong, and I'm not saying all of them are at all. There's absolutely valid criticisms to be made of feminism, but the ones that are invalid, I want to put a video out there saying that here's how you counter this argument that I see literally 20 times a day, every day of my life. And for example, one of them is the I only disagree with third wave, not second wave, which is not true literally 100% of the time it's said, because half of the things that people have a problem with from third wave were created by second wavers. Rape culture, were codified by second wavers. Rape culture, patriarchy theory, gender, like the pink aisle activism, all that stuff comes out of the second wave, not the third wave. So
yeah, I agree with that. 100%.
Yeah, and the other one that you hear a lot is that hold on. Crap, I just had a total brain fart. I can't remember the other one. They're both fundamentally connected.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so, the I only have a problem with... is that if I was alive in the second wave, in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, then I would have been a feminist then. That's usually not true either. When you actually investigate the person's views and compare them to common mainstream views within the second wave, they would not have fitted in, and they would have rejected it. So
just out of curiosity, why do you think there are anti-feminists? I know there's a wide variety of reasons, but do you think there are any reasonable reasons?
Oh, absolutely.
For it?
And I think the thing is that I'm a feminist, and I disagree with a lot of things that other feminists say, right? But I don't take it as far as an anti-feminist does in terms of writing off the whole movement. And you could say that they're not doing that, but I think just by adopting that title, they are doing that. But calling yourself an anti-feminist is by definition general.
Yeah, that is a bit weird though. I am an anti-something. Like that's.
Well, and I both call ourselves anti-feminists, but I don't think we write off the entire movement.
It's just that is the sort of message you send it when you adopt the label, I guess, because every feminist disagrees with other feminists by definition, because there's multiple movements inside it, and you fundamentally can't. Here's another.
Makes you anti-theist.
Here's another common argument that you hear that's wrong is when people say that. Well, exactly what I was saying before about how they disagree with third wave. They take that further and they say they disagree with everything in third wave feminism, which is not possible to do, because there's conflicting ideas inside there that mean that there's multiple positions you can't adopt at once. For example, there's anarcha-feminism within the third wave that's quite popular. There's Marxist feminism. Those groups do not get along. Marxist feminists are pro-government, big government regulation types. Anarcha-feminists are not that; they're the opposite. So those groups don't get along.
So what would be a better term than anti-feminist?
I don't think there is a term for it. I think it's just normal.
Egalitarian.
See, humanist is what I prefer, because it doesn't make an assumption about the difference between a theory and practice. Humanist is just the same either way. No humanist makes an argument that there's an equal playing field.
I'm a humanist, but that's not my key identifier. But I think
that the difference between humanism and egalitarianism is stuff like affirmative action. Humanists support that, and egalitarians don't generally.
I find egalitarian to be a bit vague generally, so I guess I got to study up on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Stuff like I think stuff like affirmative action is the best way to tell the difference between the two.
I sometimes feel like egalitarian is basically someone who kind of wants to be a feminist but doesn't want to call themselves that, so because they don't.
Absolutely not.
No, I would disagree strongly with that as
Them's
well.
fighting
Yeah.
words.
I know,
think it's the opposite.
But I just said I don't really know that much about egalitarianism. I'm saying this is my impression. Like people who are like, the word feminist is a bit poisonous. I don't really like it. I don't like feminists. I prefer to call myself an egalitarian. Is that completely off?
In most cases, yeah, that's not accurate.
Then why do they call themselves egalitarians?
But in order to intentionally differentiate themselves from feminists, it's kind of the opposite of what you're saying.
It's mostly to differentiate from both movements.
Right. Yeah.
It
Although,
allows you to work with everybody all the time
in
on
your
issues
case,
that
yes.
matter.
But a lot of MRAs call themselves egalitarians as
what I'm
well.
saying
Yeah, but that's contradictory. There's a lot of feminists that call themselves egalitarian, and
That's
I don't
also
think they
contradictory.
are.
No, they're wrong as well. They're humanists.
I disagree. That's contradictory, but anyway.
But what I'm saying is that feminists and egalitarians will necessarily have quite a lot of overlap in terms of things they want to achieve. It's just that egalitarians don't want to associate with feminism. They prefer it to be like broader or something. They feel like the word feminism is too limiting.
One thing that I think some feminists say that I totally disagree with is that whole thing of if you don't call yourself a feminist, you're not for equal rights. I hear that usually by celebrities saying that kind of stupid shit. That's not true. People who identify as feminists are usually doing so because they agree with feminism's goal. Well, the mainstream goals of third wave feminism. But you know,
Well, I constantly get told things I don't believe are things I believe. Like someone like, "Yo, you think Islam's a religion of peace?" I'm like, "Well, I've never ever said that. So why are you telling me I think that?" No, just ask me. I don't think it's a religion of peace. I could have told you, but you didn't ask. You know, shit like that. You know?
Well, I think both sides make those assumptions, though, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. However,
I know I've spent a lot of time debunking those assumptions made about my side.
yeah, where people make assumptions about you based on the label you use to self-identify.
Obviously, a bunch of people think Islam is a religion of peace who are on quote-unquote my side. It's just I don't agree with those people. So, just like, oh, in order to be for equal rights, you have to be a feminist. Like, you know, Garrett was just saying he doesn't agree with that.
Well, it's just
It's
factually
nice when
wrong.
you don't pick a side.
What's that?
It's nicer when you don't pick a side.
Well, I pick
don't
a
agree
side
with
because
not
I care
picking a
about
side.
the goals.
Yeah. Sometimes you
why-
have to pick a side.
That's what I
pick-
just said, though. You get to work with both without identifying with the entire movement, especially when the entire movement is largely toxic.
So you're saying egalitarians are like professional fence sitters?
Well, fence sitters don't really exist. Fence sitters they have not made their mind up about anything.
Yeah.
Egalitarians care about everything. They actually want equality.
Right. So you will say that gravity exists. You'll be like, well, some people say gravity's not true.
I disagree with this. I disagree with the statement that egalitarians want equality because most of them assert that there already is equality, which is not the same thing as wanting equality.
They want to maintain equality.
They want to.
Well, the definition of egalitarian is basically wanting equality for everybody.
That's the definition of egalitarian theory, though. We're talking about people who call themselves egalitarian in practice, and that's totally different. There's an assumption of an equal playing field there, and that's not. I don't think that's a fair and accurate reading of the world around us. So that's why I don't call myself an egalitarian, because egalitarians usually oppose things that are actively trying to level the playing field. And that's the difference, that humanists do accept that stuff, and that's why feminist is humanist, because feminists are all about leveling the playing field out. That's the whole point.
All I can say is I'll be
hold on.
Googling egalitarian after this hangout.
Is feminism about leveling the playing field, though?
In
some cases,
yeah.
In some cases it is, but in some cases it does the exact opposite.
It depends what you mean, though. Are you saying that they're intentionally trying to unlevel the playing field, or are you saying that they're trying to do it, but they're misguidedly they're achieving the opposite?
When you start with the assumption that only women have issues, or women's issues are more important, and you have to only lift up women and not men.
That's not what feminism is saying anymore. They used to say that.
No, but a lot of them do, and I can give you an example with the sentencing gap. There are feminists out there who actually have influence with the government who are trying to shut down women's prisons.
Yeah, but that's
right?
like I said before.
It's men who are discriminated against.
Yeah,
and they're trying to widen the gap.
like I said before, though, that stance...
Because they start with the assumption that the women are the ones who, in that case, are disadvantaged because they're women, when the opposite is true.
Feminists in the third wave generally would not look at a random hypothetical scenario involving a gendered issue and assume that women are always the one with the being victimized or whatever. They used to do that. That was common in the second wave. But nowadays, with things like trans rights, most feminists wouldn't do that. Most feminists would assume that trans people have it the worst. For example, when I hear people making the claim about men are raped the most in prison, but actually it's trans women that are raped the most in prison.
But I also think when Bane says some do, yeah, some do, but like it's not a monolith. Just like some
no, but they're the ones
MRAs are fucking women-hating misogynists. And when I say that, I'm not saying you're a woman-hating misogynist. You're a different person.
I'm not talking about a couple of people on Tumblr though. I'm talking about people who have, the ear of the government. That's
what I'm saying though is that
people in universities.
By the
in part 8 of my response to you, Garrett, I had an article from a law professor from a university in Melbourne who's saying we should shut down women's prisons because women are disadvantaged, even though men get longer sentences and are more likely to be convicted. So in that case, when you lift women up and they're already ahead of men, you're disadvantaging men more, and it's nothing. It's nothing to do with equality.
But you lost. Oh, you mean they're already ahead of men when it comes to prison stuff?
Yeah, they get lighter sentences and are less likely to be convicted.
Absolutely.
Do they also commit less crime or no?
Definitely. Yeah.
No, we're talking about like crimes. So
it's comparing crime to crime. Yeah.
Okay.
On a case by case basis. Yeah. He's right. But no, what I would say though is that people in the third wave are calling themselves that intentionally to differentiate themselves from people in the second wave, right? Because people in the second wave had a bunch of shitty views that we don't agree with, like being fucking trans exclusionary and shit, and being racially exclusionary.
Racists,
yeah, exactly. And so we have intentionally gone out of our way to distance ourselves from that by definition in terms of the way we describe ourselves. So to get lumped in with those people, I think is unfair. For example, like how in that 27 questions for SJWs or whatever it was, we're undoomed. I mentioned this, I've already talked about this in a hangout, but about how he conflated second and third wave by saying, you want to say that gender doesn't exist, but also are constantly inventing new genders. It's like the first camp are people from the second wave who deny that there's a difference between gender and biological sex, who don't think that trans people even exist, right? The second group is completely the opposite of that, who hate those people. I hate trans exclusionary second wavers more than I hate like anybody, basically. Those people are just absolute scum of the earth. And like I have called them out multiple times. I lost subscribers when I called them out, and I was happy to lose them because fuck.
I agree. Fuck TERFs.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, it annoys me when people conflate the two waves together because what more could we do than intentionally creating a new group to differentiate ourselves from the other group? I think we've gone out of our way to reject that shit. And I don't like being lumped in with those people. But the problem is that the second wavers are now in their like 50s and 60s. They're at the age where they're sort of in charge of society now in terms of the amount of influence feminism has in society. So they're people like when they have feminists on mainstream shows, like for example, I don't know how if you guys follow British panel shows like QI and 8 out of 10 cats and all that stuff, but when they have a feminist on that, it's a second waver. It'll be what's that TERF awful woman?
Germaine Greer.
Yeah, Germaine Greer. It'll be her, or it'll be Gloria Steinem, or it'll be one of them.
Yeah,
it's always a second waver. Right?
Germaine Greer's totally out of touch with what's going on with.
They all are, man. All the second
today.
wavers don't know fuck all, and like the worst ones are actually
these damn
the
kids
ones.
with their goddamn genders.
Yeah,
I don't like it, I tell you what. No, I turned it southern, I'm sorry.
I watch British panel shows obsessively, but when Germaine Greer's on, I skip that episode because I fucking hate her. Right?
Yeah, didn't she defend female genital mutilation?
Probably. She's fucking said all kinds of crazy, stupid
cultural.
shit.
thing or something.
Oh, right, she's a cultural relativist. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Yeah, no, I reject that shit as well. And like, yeah, so it annoys me when those people are put forward as the figurehead of feminism. It's like they were the figurehead 50 fucking years ago, and not in Germaine Greer's case, not even then. Nobody in the second wave actually gave a fuck about what she was saying in her books. They didn't read that shit. They were more concerned with actual problems in society, where she was talking about all this really airy-fairy, perfect world kind of shit. They were like, no.
I'm sure the Female Eunuch was a pretty popular book, though, wasn't it?
Not among the people, not among activists. See, the second wave was real weird in that regard, because in the first wave it was like the aristocrats who were leading the movement, the rich. In the third wave, it's the academics mostly putting out the theory. But the academics, they didn't care about feminist academia in the second wave. They cared about a couple of things written slightly before the second wave started, like The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. But mostly they didn't read that shit. My mum was a feminist community organizer activist, and she never read The Female Eunuch. She talked to someone who had read it and thought it sounded like a bunch of stupid shit. They were reading stuff like business theory of business, philosophy of management.
How to create safe spaces.
Yeah, they were working out how to get into business environments and start working their way up the corporate system and shit. That's what they were concerned about. Getting female gynecologists in, so they didn't have to, so they could choose to not see a man.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, you know. So my mum would look at Germaine Greer and go, "This is all a bunch of stupid crap that we don't care about, that maybe we should care about in 40 or 50 years when we've solved the current problems." But, you know, so that nobody gave a shit about Germaine Greer even then, but she's just been this figurehead the whole way through, and it pisses me off. Like, fuck her, man.
Yeah, it'd be like if Louis Gohmert was the representative of conservatism.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with Anita Sarkeesian. It's like nobody cares about people like her on our side. Like,
no, but they talk
about
on
her
our side, I guess. I don't know, but like our side. You know, I'm saying our side.
We talk about her, but we talk about her because anti-feminists attack her a lot.
I just talk about how much she said strategic butt covering.
Yeah, we don't actually, like, I mean, there are feminists who care about the Gamergate thing as their main issue, but not many. For most of us, it's like a sideshow that is kind of funny. Although the harassment part is obviously not funny, but the whole, like, the way that the anti-feminist backlash gave her 150 grand and stuff like that. I find it vaguely amusing, but I don't really care. And like Lacey Green, same thing, I don't care. If people on the other side actually put forward the people we do care about, like Kimberly
But
Crenshaw.
hold on, Anita went to the United Nations, didn't she?
Yeah, on online harassment. Yeah, because she's the most harassed
whether
person
you like
in
it
history.
or not, she does represent the movement.
She represents the movement against online harassment, not feminism. That's not the same. So that's why she was at the UN. It was about how to stop online harassment. And it wasn't because she was a feminist. She could have been anybody. And some of the people who went with her weren't feminists. They were other groups, atheists and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think, although there were other feminists who went as well, I will admit that. But, yeah, I think in her case, people like her are just like distractions. Nobody in feminism really cares that much. We have figureheads that we do praise, people who were instrumental in creating the movement and stuff, but like Kimberly Crenshaw, who created the term intersectionality theory, which is the big thing now, and people like Rebecca Walker, who coined the term third wave. Those are the people who are actually important.
So what do you think about the media, the feminist media online?
Most of it's pretty bad. Jezebel is the most famous one, the most popular, and I reject that outright. I think it's horrible most of the time.
Okay, so we agree on that then.
Yeah, they spread white feminist propaganda a lot. If you look at how much all their, I get what's the E magazine equivalent of a cover? I don't know, like top of the page or whatever. There's like images of feminist people, and if you do a racial analysis of it, they underrepresent minorities to an absurd degree. They're like 98% white people, white females. So it's a bit.
And this is not really the media, but when I saw Joshua McIntosh's
guy. Yeah.
When his video on toxic masculinity list, like his.
I thought that was a fair video to some degree.
I just thought his acting was hilarious, and it was funny how he's like kind of telling you how to be a guy, like.
Yeah.
If you want to be a real man, you don't have to be like this. You can be.
I don't like that guy.
Yeah. It was kind of preachy, and I was just like, this is real corny.
Yeah.
So, but then people say like, oh, Josh McIntosh like represents you or something. I'm like, what?
Fuck off. Yeah, that guy's a dick.
Even like Kevin Logan was like, Kevin was like,
then?
he was like, oh, I agree with a lot of what McIntosh says, but you got to admit he's a bit of a twat.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel about it too.
And I was like, that's true.
Yeah. Like the content-wise, in terms of his arguments about like
I agree with a bunch of stuff he says.
yeah, I agreed with a substantial amount of it, but his presentation, the way he puts it forward, is really irritating and it makes you want to reject it out of hand, even though from my own experience.
I kind of agree with your message, but I don't know. It's from
I want to hate you. Yeah, I want to hate you so bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Bane
Not Anita though, but that guy is way worse than Anita in my opinion.
So what do we do about the feminist media, which misrepresents men's rights activists and, according to you, also misrepresents feminism?
Well, misrepresents what feminism is these days, anyway. Jezebel and stuff is a little bit old-fashioned, really.
But the media itself is a fucking mess. Just non-feminist, just media, you know.
It's like that question about how is media supposed to adapt to the modern world and stuff, and the way that they're doing it at the moment isn't great in a lot of cases.
I mean, even when you've just got CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, like none of those news sources are even half decent, to be honest.
Yeah, and when they want a feminist opinion, they get Gloria fucking Steinem on, or any of those people who say horrible things. Although Gloria Steinem did take back most of the horrible things she said.
The way CNN covers just basic news stories, it's always enforced neutrality. Like, some people say this, some people say that. It was like, well, what's the fucking truth? Just tell us what the truth is. Instead of saying, oh, some people think gravity is real, some people think it isn't real. It's like, you can fucking test it. Just tell us whether it's real. Like, look into the facts. Like, the feminist media, I don't know enough about the feminist media, like Dan would know more than I do, but I assume that they...
I do agree with what you're saying, Tim, that the biggest problem with the feminist media is the media part, honestly. I think the problems that they have are the problems that most media has, like stuff that I would rail against. Like Jezebel, we've already talked about. But
is there an MRA media? I have no idea.
Yeah, of course, man. Return of Kings and stuff. Although, no, not Return of Kings.
That's a community, though. That's a community.
I corrected myself. That's an anti-feminist site.
But isn't that a community rather than a...
No, that's a pickup artist site.
Well, they are anti-feminist, though.
But is that media or is that a community?
I think the Venn diagram of PUAs and anti-feminists would be pretty much 100%. Not true with MRAs necessarily, but PUAs, yeah, man, those guys are...
Yeah, but
those guys
PUAs
tend to
and
hate
MRAs tend not to mix.
Oh, God, no, they mostly hate each other. Yeah,
I know an anti-feminist media which is rather imperfect because it's also a conservative outlet, but like Breitbart do a lot of anti-feminist stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a voice for men, obviously.
Yeah, but then the problem there is that
fucking trash, in my opinion.
The voice for men is too fundamentally tied to misogynistic values. It's been corrupted. It's worthless now. Ever since Paul Elam embraced the term happy misogynist, its site's been fucked.
Is the media feminist though? Is there a feminist bent in the media?
There's feminist news sites and stuff. And I think,
but even if there is a men's rights activist who gets on TV somewhere, he's always put up against 2 or 3 feminists. It's never one-on-one. You know, it's always that way. It's amazing.
But would you say that the anti-feminists they put up there are good ones or shit ones? In your opinion?
Sometimes they're good. I've seen Dean Esme a couple of times.
Yeah, I can't support that guy because, like, of the way he talks about atheists, to be honest.
Yeah, I've known Dean for a long time, and we don't agree on religion or atheism, but
he thinks all atheists are basically Stalin. So
I still consider him a friend, though.
Yeah.
He's friends with someone and disagree on certain things.
Right.
Yeah, like me and Tim, no problem at all. Yeah. But
we're both seen as manginas. You can't use me as an example.
All right, me and Captain Meikle then. But yeah, I think definitely the media has major problems, and you can tell even like by looking at the feminist sites that are good, that I do think are valid and should be looked at. Stuff like Everyday Feminism, they still have issues because they're media, and media have issues. And like for example, with that site, there's like a whole weird swerfy undercurrent that they're not overt about it, but like if you look at who finances them, there's like swerf groups and stuff. So they never make positive. They never do positive articles about sex work and stuff. So there's like that's a bias They're built in, and journalism and bias should not mix. So
And everyday feminism have some very weird headlines. Sometimes I read them and I'm like, I don't what?
clickbait, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Clickbait's fucking shit universally, but yeah, definitely feminists have some clickbait problems.
Yeah.
So, what do you think are the main feminist issues that should be tackled?
That's a complicated question. It depends where you are in terms of what group you belong to. If you're a mainstream third wave intersectional feminist, then you'll be looking at things like gender roles, I guess, is the main one. For example, you know the whole the idea in American politics that every issue is connected to campaign finance reform. That unless you fix campaign finance reform, you can't fix anything because the government's fundamentally corrupt. It's kind of the same in the gender sphere, because gender roles causing pretty much all the problems in both camps. I would say this is also true for men's issues.
I agree. To a large
these-
extent, anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, rejecting gender roles is not to say that it should be 100% rejected, though, because there's stuff about, like, for example, Captain Mika would say that there's things that men's groups do that call attention to their masculinity and highlight that as a positive thing, right? So men who have been victims of domestic violence going out on hunting trips and stuff. I don't have an issue with that. But there are things in the gender role world that do cause major, major problems. And and I think we need to tackle that shit first, because everything else is not you're never going to be able to solve everything 100% without solving that.
Okay, but don't you think a lot of feminism reinforces gender roles when they class women universally as a victim class and men as a victimizer class? It's something we see all the time. I know it is, but it's something we do see.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. No, that stance, if feminists who take that stance, that's a reductive stance, and it's not accurate. But I guess it all comes down to the way that I group feminists together in terms of the broadest grouping possible, which is that there's three kinds. There's your theorists, academics, doing work in the social sciences and stuff like that, in the humanities. Then there's the activists who use the work of the first group to achieve change. There's a third group, though, that are neither of those things, that I call the identity group, the people that embrace the term as a part of their identity, that they like being thought of, they like thinking of themselves as feminists, because that means that they sit on a certain position on ideological spectrums and whatnot. But they don't do any real activism, and they don't know much about what they're talking about. That group I'm pretty opposed to, because they make feminists look bad a lot, and they annoy me because they misrepresent the things they're talking about because they don't really understand it. So that accusation I made about anti-feminists not understanding like the differences between second and third wave, you could say that about Tumblr feminists too. They don't understand it either, and they take positions that are counterproductive and talk in that reductionist way a lot. So yeah, they're often pretty young. If you look at Tumblr feminists, they're usually teenagers. They don't really know anything, or they don't know much.
I also think of Lacey Green as almost like an MTV feminist, because when you watch her videos. Yeah, it's so trendy, like flashy logos. Like, guys, you wouldn't believe it. This about
She's got a million subs.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. That's why she has so many subs, because she does it in such a trendy way.
Well, she's also that I mentioned in our last.
But isn't that a problem from your side? Surely it is. If you
in a way, yes.
And you've got this watered down lollipop kind of, version of feminism.
We talked about this a lot in the last hangout.
I think it has pros and cons, to be honest.
Yeah, and it does have pros, and that's one of the things we were covering is that Lacey Green her audience is teenage girls, right? That's an intentional decision she made long ago. She's always tried to appeal to teenage girls, and when you do that, you have to frame things in a certain way. Like, in the last hangout, the thing I mentioned is that if you started going into like complex theory, like trying to explain what intersectionality theory is, they're not going to care. They're not like intellectually curious like that. So they want things in a more digestible format. However, the problem is that are the people delivering the message knowledgeable enough to do that? Because you have to know more than what you're putting forward if you're doing that, right? You have to have a better understanding of things than what you're putting forward to the teenage girls. And I don't know if that's necessarily true of Lacey Green. I don't know how much she actually knows about what she's talking about. However,
I've never seen her sit down and try to have an academic discussion about feminism. So
no.
I have no idea what she has read or knows about.
Yeah. However, though, she is this very specific type of feminist. She's a sex-positive, sex advocacy, sex therapist, whatever you want to call it, sexpert. That's her thing, right? Not sex therapist, but
Sorry, it just sounded funny.
That's her thing, right? And so when she strays into other areas of feminism, she often doesn't know what she's talking about. But she knows what she's talking about sex advocacy, because that's her thing, So yeah, I think it's just like I wouldn't look at any YouTuber, like say for example, when Thunderfoot, he makes his science videos and they're fine most of the time because he's a scientist, so it's entertaining. But when he strays into other areas, he often doesn't know what the fuck he's on about. So it's just painful and just annoying,
But I've noticed that, I mean, and I don't know enough about science to criticize this, but most of his science videos are just about like chemical change or like reactions. So he's always like, what happens when I throw this into this pot? It explodes.
Because he's a chemist, right? He is a chemist.
Is that his field?
Yeah, chemistry.
But that is like a pop scientist thing, though. It's like one of them was like, look, I built a fucking model plane. It's like, well, that's great, but I guess like the little kids do that too. It doesn't make you an amazing scientist.
Yeah.
But I guess it's fun. You gotta have hobbies. So.
And isn't the good thing about YouTube that people can express ideas or opinions, and other people can come along and reply to them?
Yes, however, the problem with that is if you get past a certain point in popularity, you just can't do that anymore in any kind of practical sense. I can't, what amount of commenters could Lacey Green even theoretically reply to?
And many of the comments are just people.
No, I meant like in reply videos more.
Oh, right, yeah. Some people have a policy of never engaging with response videos like Kat Black does, and when you listen to her justification for it, I think she makes a pretty good case. I think, she's got 100,000 subs, she gets response videos every day, and she's just like, nah, fuck them all. I'm just going to say no. I don't have the time. And I guess, fair enough.
But that's what I like about YouTube, is the exchange of ideas and opinions, and to be challenged.
Yeah.
But I also like using YouTube to just express yourself, independent of whether you're talking to someone, just like saying something you believe. And then seeing who agrees with it or who thinks you're stupid, Yeah. So part of it's a conversation, part of it is just expressing yourself. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, I think there's definitely problems in terms of people talking about things they don't know enough about to really be an authority on it, but they talk about it as if they are. That's a problem.
I try to avoid stuff I don't know much about.
Yeah, and that's the same with me. I
making a video about it.
People say, make a video on this or respond to this. It's like, I don't know enough about it, sorry. And, there are things that I've actually spent, a pretty absurd amount of money on stuff to do with my channel. I bought just quite a lot of books, maybe 100 books or 70 books, something like that, of related to stuff that I want to research. Like the Islamic terrorism series, I didn't have almost any of those books, and there's 20 books in that reading list, and I bought all of those. And I bought this mug with my logo on it.
Nice.
Yeah, man, totally. But yeah, no. So I'm not going to talk about Islamic terrorism and the history of it until I actually know enough about it to do that. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm learning more so I can make that series. But people don't approach it like YouTube like that a lot of the time. They're just like, oh, I'll do a thing and spend 2 minutes. Like Sargon of Akkad totally does that a lot. Like, I'll skim read this rape prevalence study and then make a video about it with a ton of misinformation in it. It's like, that's so lazy. And
yeah, and recently he reviewed a book about cults. I didn't watch that video, but it seems to me he reviewed it so that he can start accusing people of being in cults. Because ever since he's made that video, he's accused so many people of being in cults, and I guess that's why he read it.
Yeah.
Now I can accuse people.
We know you're in a cult, Tim. Just admit it.
I guess I am. I'm in a cult.
Yeah, we're in a cult of people who disagree with each other a lot.
Cult of people from New Zealand.
Yes, it's called New Zealand.
Yes. Oh, New Zealand is a cult.
That reminds me, Bane, when you mentioned in that video that there seems to be a lot of New Zealand feminists, yeah. I wanted to reply that there seems to be a lot of Australian anti-feminists.
They've suddenly popped up.
Yeah, Bane, Sugar Tits,
yeah,
and there's another guy called...
just the last 6 months or so, yeah.
There's another guy, I can't remember what his name is, he's got 8,000 subs, he's another Australian guy, does videos about Bane and stuff.
But, after my Bane hangout, there was a bunch of comments on my channel saying like, oh, it's such an embarrassment that this guy is from our country, and they were talking about me. So I was like, I guess there's some, New Zealand anti-feminists out there as well. because there was some New Zealanders saying like, "Oh God, this embarrasses New Zealand." So
Yeah. There's a guy who did, a New Zealander from Auckland who did a response video to me, and in the title of the video he attacked my character. So I was like, nah. I'm good.
Geez, does everyone know? Like, am I allowed to say this? I don't know. Bewildered Ape is from New Zealand.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
pretty
we kind
common
of figured
knowledge
his
now.
accent. He lives in Australia, doesn't
He
he?
does
Yeah,
live
but
in
he's from
Australia.
New Zealand.
He's from Auckland.
I
Yeah.
apologize, guys.
Yeah.
We have to apologize for Bewildered Ape, basically.
I'll take that responsibility on. I'll embrace that. I apologize for him. He's
Yeah, I think
terrible.
it's Garrett's fault.
Yeah. He still has the record for quickest ban on my channel.
Yep.
3 comments. No,
But
totally,
on the
totally
cult
civil.
thing, I get it, because from the outside, if you're looking at me, you'd see like, oh, I'm exchanging tweets with Christy Winters. I'm doing hangouts with like Garrett and other feminists, and I'm having favorable discussions with like other I had a discussion with Steve Shives, and I didn't seem to challenge him enough. So from the outside perspective, they'd be like, yeah, obviously Tim is part of this feminist cult or some shit. But if you actually talk to me and Garrett, and you'll find out that there's a diverse range of opinions and views. It's not just like, I agree with everyone because feminism. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense. There's a whole lot of feminists who I just don't care for. So.
And I totally actually champion their place in the community as well. Like, I have a ton of disagreements with the skeptic feminist, but I'm glad that they exist.
Me and Christy have had fights.
Yeah.
Like, Bernie, bro.
I probably disagree with PSF on more stuff than I agree with them on, but I want the community to have a range of opinions and voices and stuff. So
yeah, but sometimes you get cynical about talking to people who disagree with you when it feels like all they're doing is straw manning, or they're not fucking listening, or
Well, with regard to Russian Deadpool specifically, because the last time we talked, he was baiting me hard, like really hard. I just haven't really felt the need to talk to him since.
And when I disagreed with him on the Foxy Jezebel thing, he blocked me. So I was like, okay. But then he unblocked me. So.
Yeah,
like
we
Garrett
had
did. People can't make up their fucking mind. Keep me blocked or don't. Yes, they don't.
They just block you to shut you up for a little while.
Basically. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
All right, you've been
only
in timeout, so yep.
I think
I
I've
just
got like 3 people blocked on my YouTube channel, and one of them is Sale Polani.
I don't know.
Mancheese.
Oh,
Mancheese.
God, yeah. She was the
Yeah.
very first person in the community that I called out publicly, Mancheese.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's been around a long time
She
and
has,
used
yeah.
many different names.
The
Yeah.
only thing I know about Mancheese is how much Garrett hates her.
You know,
well,
Captain
we
Andy
agree
hates
on
her
that.
as well. You know that. Captain Andy made a video about her that was fucking harsh, man. Yeah. But yeah, like with her, in my second video, maybe it was one of my very early ones, I was talking about feminists with horrible views, and I flashed up a picture of her. And most people don't know what she looks like, so it flew under the radar a bit. But yeah, she was the first.
Wasn't it Docs, was
But
it?
she used to appear on camera all the time when she was
Yeah.
going to Sale Polani.
That's right. Yeah.
Does Mancheese make videos? I didn't even know that.
Used to.
Used
I
to.
don't think she
Used
does
to.
anymore.
I-
yeah.
I think she started back making videos recently.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So-
She's blocked on my channel. Yeah. In fact, she hadn't even. She's got the record because she never even commented on my channel before I blocked her. I just auto
I have
blocked
one
her.
person blocked. One. Yep. He
It's
shit
me.
all over my parade on Twitter. I was
was it?
pissed. I don't even know.
Oh, just some random.
Some random asshole. He corrected a purposeful spelling error, and I told him to go fuck himself.
I blocked
Yeah.
someone for impersonating Steve Shives because I was like, look, my one criteria is that you be you. You can't just
Yeah.
pretend Steve Shives.
Oh shit. Bane, we better leave.
Oh, true.
You guys are just like hamsters in a human costume, yeah. Like 16 hamsters running around a human.
This
suit.
is not Bane and
Excuse me, I am cats.
Right. Sorry.
But
Lucky
that
rat.
wasn't because I was offended because they were pretending to be Steve Shives. It's that they were pretending to be somebody else. I was like, I don't care who you pretend to be. You just have to be you. Otherwise, what's the point in having you on my channel? You're just being a waste.
I
of
blocked
time.
someone on Twitter who I've never had any communication with. That was Justin Templar because I think he's a dangerous person.
I don't know enough about.
Yeah, I don't know enough about him either. I've heard the name, but
Yeah.
The doxing shit he did was fucked up, man. That's fucked
Didn't
up.
he get doxxed too, though?
Well, I mean, sure, but fuck.
I don't know who doxxed who first, but
Yeah, neither do I. But
do have,
wasn't there a group with Jenny McDermott and Bewildered Ape on Facebook or something? And
there was. Yep.
I think Kevin Logan was the only one who said something about we shouldn't be doing this or something like that.
Yeah. He did. Yeah.
AIU is blocked on my channel, but that's because I specifically blocked him before I made a video slamming him just to annoy him. So I was like, he's going to try to defend himself from this video, and he'll find out he's blocked.
And you know what the hilarious thing is? He'll be making comments and not even knowing that nobody can see them.
I don't know if he's
blocking on YouTube.
Oh, but if someone you've blocked comments, can you see the comment in your channel thing?
It depends on the version. Like if you use Chrome, I don't know about Firefox, but if you use Chrome, you don't get notifications anymore when blocked people comment. But on the mobile YouTube app, you do. And so I get things, and I can see that this person's commented, but they don't come up anywhere else.
Oh, okay. But that was a special circumstance. It was just because I wanted to annoy him. So, because he's a fucking cunt.
Yeah, with regard to I was just thinking, with regard to Mancheese,
yeah.
I actually blocked her on purely ideological grounds, right? Which I know there's a lot of like those free speech activists who would probably hate me for that, but they probably wouldn't demonize that specific instance because she's so horrible. But yeah, I blocked her because she's a TERF and a racist.
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Horrible person.
When she was still Sale Polani, she blocked me, and this was before I started making videos. I watched one of her videos, and I noticed that she was, hardcore feminist and also Jewish, and I sent her a message, being an atheist, asking how those two things go together, considering, the founding fathers of Christianity and Judaism owned slaves and slept with those slaves, which would technically be rape, wouldn't it? If you own someone and sleep with them. So how can you support a religion and still call yourself a feminist? I was very polite. I was ultra polite to her in every way, trying not to be offensive in any possible way. And about a week or so later, I went to comment on one of her videos, and I was blocked.
How dare you politely disagree with someone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got a response, of course. But yeah. Are you guys atheists? Just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I don't believe in any deities. I'm religious because I'm a Buddhist, but I don't have any religious beliefs.
I used to call myself agnostic, but I changed it to an atheistic agnostic.
I use the term apatheist, which is a sort of combination of agnostic and atheist, which is basically that I don't take a position on whether God exists or not, but I operate under the assumption that there is no God because that seems to make the most sense from a purely pragmatic view. That if you're going to take a position in practice, you might as well take the position of no God because it makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's the basic position. Yeah.
What about you guys?
Oh, we're both
I'm an anti-theist.
Oh, no.
I don't agree with anti-theism because well, I'm an intersectional feminist. So
I used to think it was cool, but then I realized it wasn't.
I was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, right.
Well, I reject.
I got my
So you've got a kind of personal experience with it that makes So that makes.
And I went
sense.
through, let's say, several religions before I became an atheist. I was 20 before I even knew what evolution was.
Yeah. So you were just on the market shopping, like.
Oh yeah. I even
this could be
sampled
good.
some Wiccan, and because goth kids have to do that. It's like a rite of passage.
Well, I know Dan was a
Nietzsche,
Buddhist.
Wicca,
Are you
those are the
still a
two.
Buddhist? Are you a Buddhist anymore, Dan? No.
Yeah, I'm a Buddhist. Yeah, I don't have any religious beliefs though. I don't believe in reincarnation or anything.
So it's more just like you like Buddhism, so.
Well, it's a way
More
of
of a
living.
philosophy?
It's a way of looking at the world
Yeah.
that I embrace. Yeah, things like not causing any intentional harm to other creatures and stuff like that. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And also, it's about the rejection of things like souls. That's really important in Buddhism. Is that there's no such thing as a soul. It's one of the main key tenets. The rejection of that idea. That there's an incorporeal part of you that's like an essential self. It's called an anatta. It means no essential self, no core.
But hold on, Buddhism is an offshoot of Hinduism. And
Yeah,
they believe in
but they
incarnation,
reject.
so-
That's exactly why it's an offshoot, though, because they rejected that. And Hinduists believe the exact opposite. They believe in Atta, the presence of a core, the presence of an essential self. And Buddhism rejected that. They kept some stuff from Hinduism, but they rejected that hardcore. He kept reincarnation, right? Which most modern Western Buddhists reject. And the reason he kept it is because it's like... I'm trying to think of a modern equivalent. It's a misconception that was so pervasive in society that to reject it was almost unthinkable. It was like an assumed truth, you know what I mean? I get like heliocentrism in Christianity, that the world was the core of the universe is just assumed. It's one of those things, and he was just raised in that society and was too, experientially biased towards the idea of reincarnation to reject it. And so I give him a pass on that, but yeah, I reject it. There's no evidence for it. So the Dalai Lama was once interviewed by what's his name? The guy from the original Cosmos series. Carl Sagan. Yeah, he was interviewed by Carl Sagan, and Carl Sagan asked him, what is Buddhism's stance on one of the core tenets of it being disproven by science? And he said, well, we'd abandon whatever that was. If science disproved a belief we have, we'd abandon that belief. And he said, what about reincarnation? He said, even reincarnation.
Yeah.
So that's exactly right.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish that there was an afterlife. That would be nice.
It's a very comforting thought, isn't it?
No, but I genuinely do sometimes feel a bit depressed. Like Richard Dawkins would always say, "No, but it's the majesty of, we've only got one life. It's so fantastic. Like if we make the most of it." But I'm like, if you're a bit of a pessimist and you don't enjoy your life enough, then that's not really very reassuring. You're like, oh, I'm just going to turn into a worm food, aren't I? Kind of sucks. I know Richard Dawkins is big upping this, but it's a bit of a bummer. Because I think the only way in which I would believe that there's an afterlife or whatever is I was delusional and scared, and I just needed something to reassure me.
Yeah, like on your deathbed, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Like I probably could forgive people for converting on their deathbed. I'd be like, well, they are about to die, so fair enough.
And a lot of people do it for the sake of their family as well. Their family's all concerned they're going to go to hell or whatever, and they just want to make them shut up about it. So they, I know of some cases of that. I think that's quite common.
But yeah, bummer.
What were you going to ask, Bane?
I forgot.
Fair enough.
Oh, oops, it's rambling too much. Yeah.
That's all right. It's all right.
But yeah, no, I was just going quickly back to anti-theism. I reject it on the grounds of that it fucks with intersectionality. Like, for example, with regard to Muslim feminists, women in the Middle East who want women's rights and stuff. Most of them are Muslim. I estimated before that it would be somewhere around 70 to 90%. Because if you go through and actually read all the wiki pages for all these people, almost all of them are wearing hijabs and stuff. So if you take the stance that you'd only work with a Muslim, with a Middle Eastern woman on women's rights if she was an atheist, which some feminists do take that stance, that's counterproductive, and it's only going to make, it's not going to solve anything, because people aren't going to do that. They're not going to be, I'll just give up my entire worldview so I can have rights. I don't know.
My problem with anti-theism is not necessarily what it means, but it tends to lead to people being overly militant about being anti-religion to the point that dialogue gets stifled, in my opinion, because they're so vehemently
anti-theist you are.
Yeah, I can say.
I am not adverse to working with somebody who's religious for other purposes, but if they bring up religion, I am not going to put kid gloves on just because I agree with them about something else. I hate cherry pickers, particularly Muslim cherry pickers. Have any of you read the Quran? I'm just curious.
Yes. Yeah, I've read it, but I've only read one English translation, which is generally not enough.
I've read
go to a mosque. Go to a mosque, tell them you're going to convert, they will give you the best translation you can get.
I need to buy a couple others because, I don't know how much you know about Arabic, but there's a wide variety of contextual translation possibilities there. And with
That's
that
why
language,
I'm telling you to go to a mosque. Find a mosque.
Yeah.
They will give you the best translation they've got available. And they will usually give you the best one because they want more.
What I'm saying is it's not about best, it's about a range, because each interpretation is potentially accurate. So you need to get the range, because of the differences between the two language, of different possible interpretations. For example, there's a really famous passage that I'm going to be dealing with in a response video soon. The passage where it says that where it seems to be justifying men beating their wives for various reasons. Now, you can actually translate that passage as men beating their wives, or you could translate it as a non-violent version of some kind of reprimand. So there's a range of different ways you can interpret that, and most anti-Muslim types tend to take the harshest interpretations in every case. And I try and do more equanimous than that.
Are you familiar with the phrase tequila? Do you know what it means?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
That is something you always have to take into account, because they will flat out lie. And a lot of them do it. Even the moderates do it. It's
you got to keep in mind, most religious people haven't read the holy text. I think it's I don't know the stats for Muslims, but I read Christian stats. One point is 15%, and I imagine that's
Christianity's
more than I imagined.
Diluted, watered down, and beaten. It's a dead horse at this point.
So is Islam. Islam.
Not as much. Not so much.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
A lot more.
Most people, actually, I would even maybe argue it's more watered down, because if you look at how the transmission works in the religion of transmission of knowledge about the religion, in Islam, it's way, and the majority of the time, it's person to person. It's like an imam interpreting the text and telling them that to a follower verbally, right? In Christianity, there is a lot of that, obviously, but there's slightly less. Because of literacy, things like that, there's more literacy in the Western world, so people can just read it if they want, whereas that's less. Well, there's obviously.
But as Miss talking about in terms of how negative the message that's being passed on is by the imam or by the person.
Yeah, Islam has always had problems with imams having their own agenda and interpreting things to suit that agenda. For example, about 200 years after Muhammad died, there was a rabidly misogynistic, very popular, I don't think he was an imam, but whatever the other word is, sheikh or whatever. He was a religious instructor anyway, and he basically interpreted the Quran and the hadiths and everything in the most anti-woman way possible. And that had a major effect on Islam forever, basically. There was a whole lot of egalitarian-y sort of stuff that was taken out. And because Muhammad actually was kind of he had similar views to some of those revolutionary communists in terms of getting women into the military and stuff like that. He had some pretty weird ideas about
but when you say stuff equality. Like that, you have to spell it out that you're not saying, therefore, he was some kind of magical feminist.
No, he had a whole lot of
like a paradise.
Fuck no, he's a warlord.
Yes.
But, that doesn't mean he's 100% evil. He had some good stuff about him, but a lot of that stuff's been corrupted out of Islam ever since.
I don't think anybody exists that's 100%
It was like Hitler was a vegetarian, and he liked art.
So. Hitler was not a vegetarian.
He said he was a vegetarian.
Have you read Albert
but Hitler
Speer's
loved
book?
Germany. He
did.
definitely had Germany. He had Germany's best interests in at heart.
Just wanted to make Germany great again.
Yeah, make
Germany great again.
Oh God, comparing Trump to Hitler.
I just think I would compare Hitler to Hitler, and maybe Pol Pot, or I don't know who else I'd compare. Some other guy.
Trump is more comparable in a technical
dictator.
sense.
He's a violent. He was a violent dictator.
When Trump has done a genocide, then he'll be comparable to.
There you go.
Hitler. He hasn't done a genocide yet, so.
No, he just wants to build walls.
The accurate comparison
here, though. But he's not Hitler.
People make a comparison between what Hitler was like before he was elected and what Trump is like now, though. That seems more fair.
Yeah, but
if you look at the rhetoric he was using, and it's not even about Hitler. It's about
that Trump could lead to a genocide. I guess he could theoretically, but.
No, he just wants mass deportation of illegal immigrants,
which is real bad, but it's still not.
Which is going to lead to a lot of death.
It's still not as bad as Hitler.
Yeah, but the thing is,
he gets misconstrued in the media quite a bit. The American media likes to demonize him.
Well, there's the fact that he constantly says conflicting things. That doesn't help.
It doesn't. He is the worst politician I've ever seen.
In terms of being professional at it,
but not for America.
Well,
Americans love it.
Yeah, but well, it's not necessarily that they're Americans. It's that American society is more right-wing than most Western advanced countries.
I also think it's a symptom of like reality TV culture because
Exactly.
yeah, like wrestling culture, even like coming in being the big strong guy and just basically wowing everybody, and people not thinking about the implications of that. Like maybe this has negative policy implications. They don't think about
American politics is all a popularity contest. It's
and
about
he's awesome
slandering
at
the
that.
other person and being the best.
And
That's
Hillary sucks at that, and Trump is awesome at it. But
Yeah,
it's
but
kind
there-
of tempered
there is a
by
difference,
his
though.
and his horrible, gaffes. So.
There's a difference in the electorate, though. Did you see that video, Tim, about RWA, right-wing authoritarians?
No.
And the psychology behind it? Yeah. It was pointing out that if you look at people on the left and right, they have a different approach to dealing with their politicians in that if a person on the left, or vague left anyway, is saying something that would appeal to people on the left, but they're just sort of presenting the information. People on the left are more skeptical. Like Hillary Clinton, for example, she says a lot of the right stuff,
Yeah.
but
But everyone's
people
like,
don't believe
but
her.
it's her.
Yeah, people are inherently suspicious. Whereas with Trump, he says the dog whistle stuff, and they're like, done, sweet. Even if he contradicts that later, they're like, no, he said the thing, it's fine. So just saying the things, like all you have to do is check off the list of things to say, the right,
Oh my God, did you guys see that?
That's how most American presidents get in. They say the right things, they get in, and then they do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, and most American presidents, at least recently, have been to the right, since progressivism kind of died in the 70s.
But I think
We need
Trump's
to bring
probably
back
going to
Bush.
lose.
That was the best.
I think Trump takes it too far in the other direction. Like, because for example, Ann Coulter just released a book called Trust in Trump, where she was like, "There's nothing that could disqualify Donald Trump unless he changed his views on immigration," and he just changed his views on immigration the day the book came out. And so Ann Coulter is like, "Oh shit, he just changed his opinion the day I released my book."
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
And I think he's going to alienate even the right too much in that way. So I think he's going to make it impossible for himself to win.
It is impossible for him to win.
Because he's even alienating all of the psychotic racists and lunatics like Ann Coulter. So I mean, how's he going to win this thing?
Yeah.
Some people are going to be by him no matter what, but already a lot
I
of
think people will vote for him just to not vote for Hillary.
Yep, and people will vote for Hillary just not to vote for him in probably greater numbers.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose, but yeah.
I have a couple of American friends, and they've been telling me that it's probably going to be Trump. Just
really?
Really.
The numbers don't back that up.
Well,
numbers. They're liberal.
There's a theory that some Trump surrogates have put forward of this thing called the secret Trump voter, or whatever the term they use. People who say no in polls but will vote for him. There's no actual evidence to back that up. It seems to be a false theory.
Well, there's a lot of theories floating around about Bernie Sanders being assassinated from the inside, and then all that shit leaked, and it turned out it was true.
Well, no, a lot of Bernie supporters took that shit way further than it was, with talks of rigged elections. If it wasn't rigged, there was a bias.
It was a character assassination on their part, and it succeeded.
But to say rigged election implies some kind of actual vote fraud, which there wasn't.
Oh no,
Except in the Nevada caucus, there probably was there, but and maybe Iowa, but that's only 2 out of 50.
I think the system's corrupt just in terms of how it is set up. It's not.
Of course,
a conspiracy. It's just like there's too much money in it. There's too much.
There are much better candidates in the third party, and a lot of Americans do it to themselves. Oh, a third party vote's just a throwaway vote. It's a waste of a vote. Why would you do that? Well, because there's better candidates, for one thing.
Yeah.
Stop focusing on what the media wants you to focus on, which is two talking heads, when there are actual candidates in third party.
I would say you can't really blame people within a two-party system for the existence of the two-party system, though, because they're sort of set up they're from the core out, and in order to replace it, you need to actually do that legislatively. Like in New Zealand,
we have the same problem here.
In New Zealand, we transitioned from first past the post to MMP, and that is how we solved that. Ever since we did that, the third and fourth parties have propped up and are now getting seats, and there's a whole coalition-y thing going on that is exactly what America needs. But you can't get there within a first past the post system very easily, because it encourages two parties,
Yeah, Canada's pretty much the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, we went completely off into something else.
It's all my fault. It happens. It's me. It's something with me.
Yeah.
It's good though. No, it's fine.
With me too. So
Yeah.
Okay, can I blame Bane then? I'm
yeah, you
blaming
can
him.
blame me. I don't mind.
I was going to do that anyway.
You sit there and
Yeah.
say nothing most of the time.
Yeah.
I've been
You get
talking
blamed
most
for
of the
everything.
time. You started talking about American politics, and I got bored.
Yeah, as you do.
I'll be honest. I don't care who wins. I think they're both as bad as each other.
They are, yeah.
They're
Really,
both
you
as
think
bad as
that
each other in
Hillary-
different ways.
I think Hillary's as bad as Trump. I don't think so.
It depends
I
on
think she's
how
bad.
you judge
but-
badness.
She is corrupt beyond corrupt, and she is two-faced. She is
But-
a warmonger.
But look at Trump.
Yeah.
Trump is
Like
my
I said,
argument.
he gets misconstrued a lot. He's an idiot,
Yeah.
but is he malicious? Hillary is malicious.
I think the whole question is
He is
it
a
worth
fraud.
voting? Is it actually worth voting for Hillary just to stop Trump? That's the big question.
No,
Well, there's a
not
lot of
my
Ameri-
opinion, anyways. He would be hilarious. He would be another Bush. We would just laugh at him, and then he'd go away.
Yeah, but there's a lot of negative consequences of hilarious, like
Oh yeah, for
Stuff.
sure.
in the real
Trump,
world.
you know what Chomsky said? Chomsky said that
Chomsky, oh.
he took the, he took the position that maybe America needs someone like Trump just to get them to the bottom of the barrel, you know, to get them to rock bottom, so that action can actually start being taken in a major grassroots way.
Yeah, but I
He's
think that would have
He's
happened
less
by
than
now.
Hillary.
Theory, but-
Hillary is terrifying.
I don't agree with that because I think it would have happened by now. Like after Bush, they would have been like, but they kind of did because they brought Obama in. So I don't know, maybe.
I don't know, man. Trump is much more stark case than George W. Bush was.
I think that's why they voted in Obama in such
You
large
can
numbers.
put 2 back-to-back clips of Trump talking that just show him within about 10 seconds to be a blatant fraud. Like, you know, in the primaries where he's going on about the evils of campaign financing, and then he pivots in the general to being funded entirely by private dark money interests and shit.
And,
He
and
just
that thing
wants
about
to
his
win.
penis not being that small,
Mm.
that was obviously a blatant lie.
Yeah, but Bernie wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Because he actually did care about it. He was actually genuine about the campaign finance thing. So he wouldn't
Bernie
have done
Sanders
that.
was terrifying in his own right. He
I
was
love
very
Bernie
anti-science.
I disagree.
Nah,
Really? You think his anti-vaccine stance was not
he's
terrifying?
not an
I
anti-vaxxer.
didn't even know he had an
Oh, yes, he
anti-vaccine
is.
stance.
I'm not going to take
I
your
will-
word for that. But
I haven't
I'll
even
look
heard
into
about
it.
Look it up. Look it up. Look into it. He was very against forcing vaccines on anybody because he doesn't think they're all safe and that there's too many
does
all
have-
at once.
He does have
And
an odd
he's been very
libertarian
vocal against
streak at times.
genetically modified organisms, so he's very anti-GMO. He wants to put labels on them, which is essentially
But he-
impossible.
He also had a bit of a strange libertarian streak on guns too, like.
Yeah, I'm not saying he was bad. He's terrifying in different ways. They're all terrifying. I just think
know if that
Hillary
makes
is
him
scarier.
terrifying. I think that makes him. He has flaws because he's a human. So there's some problems with Bernie because everyone has some problems, and there's.
Anti-science terrifies me.
He's got some blind spots. Yeah, but he wasn't anti-science across the board, right? It was just like on
No,
that issue. Maybe he's a bit
mostly-
weird.
Vaccines are a big problem right now.
Right.
Like,
That is
Diseases
definitely a
coming
problem.
back that never existed for 20 years.
I'm just
and-
saying I don't know if that would make him terrifying in the aggregate, like in terms of being a candidate. It would just mean
He
like,
would definitely be better of the three of them.
oh fuck yeah, I mean, there's no competition. I mean,
Yeah, oh,
maybe
yeah,
I like
but-
Sanders too much, but
I would have preferred Elizabeth Warren to him, but
oh,
she
but
didn't
she's
run.
turning shit now. So,
She is now, yeah.
that sucks.
She's turning
Trump
third
just
way.
wants to win.
Can't trust anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Trump wants to win. That's all he wants.
I don't even see. There's a theory that he doesn't even want to be president.
Oh, I think he wants to win. I think that's why he's pushing it so hard with the Make America Great Again. I mean, come on, that's like the best slogan I've ever heard for
Maybe
appealing to
this-
Americans.
This is all an advertising campaign for a show he's going to make called Make America Great Again.
It is.
Like,
Well, you know they've talked about doing The Apprentice in the White House, right?
oh my god.
You didn't know that? Yeah, man. He's floated the idea. He's talking about it with NBC. It's a potential idea to do President Apprentice.
Like, you completely screwed up the Palestine-Israel negotiations. You're fired.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I almost got peace.
Yeah.
No good.
And there's that theory that the whole reason he started his campaign in the primaries was to improve his negotiating position with NBC in terms of the money he gets from Apprentice.
I didn't want you to nuke that Middle Eastern country. But, oh, come on, Donald, I thought you wanted... Nope, I didn't want it. You're fired. Like,
He just wants to be able to fire everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I didn't know that. That's really depressing, actually.
Yeah, man.
It's just sad. Like, that doesn't make me laugh. It just makes me sad. Like, they're gonna do fucking The Apprentice in the White House. Like, oh, God.
Yeah, White House reality TV show. It's the pinnacle when you think about it.
Fucking disaster.
Like, where do you go from there?
It actually impacts people's lives. That's the sad thing.
Pentagon, maybe? Inner workings of the American military apparatus.
Like, it's no longer a joke. It's actually something that affects people. So if you're empathetic to human beings, you're like, this is not that funny. It's just like really depressing that he's almost going to be president. God, I hope he isn't. Anyways, okay, let's stop rambling.
All right, well, I guess we should.
Really depressed him.
God, I'm going to be so depressed tonight. Thinking about Trump, I'm just going to drink a lot.
Well, I think the main takeaway from the U.S. election, assuming Trump loses, is that progressivism seems to be on the rise again, which is kind of nice, because the third way's controlled the Democratic Party for so long.
But it's not on the rise enough to actually win.
No, but, you know, you got to start somewhere.
Yep.
There was a big grassroots movement, man. He raised the most campaign finance from donations of anyone ever.
It's at $27.
He outraised Hillary Clinton's fucking dark money.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I hope Bane is having a good sleep.
We're going to wrap this up now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
I was just going to say, I've enjoyed this, guys, and if you ever want to do it again, let me know. Maybe next time we can have a topic, maybe a men's rights topic.
I was going to say, if we do it again, we'll make it a bit more structured and a bit more issue-focused. Yeah.
Right.
Sounds good, yeah.
I do have one last question, though. In your video, when you were saying we were in like a fucking echo chamber or something, you sounded like angry to me. Were you actually angry? Because you sounded so pissed off.
I normally keep calm, but I did play it up a little bit for that video because I thought it would get your attention, which it did.
But you also really genuinely believe what you're saying, right? Like you're in a fucking echo chamber. That's why I don't do fucking echo chambers.
Echo chambers do piss me off, though.
Right.
And yeah, me too.
Everyone.
I tend to use. I don't use that word. I tend to use the word groupthink. But yeah, it's one of my main things that I rail against for sure. And you know, like here's an example. There's I think it was Christy Winters and a few other people, like Came the Dawn, who's another feminist who's blocked on my channel.
Yes, I've had a run-in with her in the comment section.
It's a he. Came the Dawn's.
Oh, he is it?
Yeah. Came the Dawn is a swerf, so we obviously had a big, because I'm a sex worker rights activist, so we had a pretty big falling out. But anyway, there were a group of people who were making a list, like a playlist of feminist videos by various people responding to anti-feminists, and they wanted to put my, I guess, what was it, my Armored Skeptic video, or one of them anyway, on there, and I said no, because I don't like being, the idea of me being in a playlist of other people I can't control and being, you know, lumped in with people whose views I don't even know who they are or what they might be. So I said no, you know. And I guess, that's...
Yep.
Yeah.
So we all agree echo chambers are cancer then?
Yep. I think that's a fair statement. Yeah.
No, cancer is cancer. People always say X is cancer. Like, no, it isn't. Cancer's cancer. It's like the Nazi thing again. Blah, blah, it's Nazis. No, it isn't. Nazis are Nazis. That's just semantics anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean.
All right.
It's cancer, Bane.
Well, thank you.
Go back to your cult, Tim.
Okay, I'll just head back there now. Let's see what's up. What have you guys been doing? Let's sacrifice.
What's up, cult?
What are we sacrificing, guys?
You've been talking to the outsiders for too long.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I heard a bit of Canadian in your voice there. Outsiders.
Outsiders.
Yeah, you don't have a very strong Canadian accent, I gotta say.
Because I'm not from Newfoundland. Fuck.
You live in the South.
I did have a Canadian respond to me, and I kept making fun of the way he said sorry. He was like, sorry? Well, I'm sorry. I know, it's rude to make fun of people's accents. I think that's
it's just lowest common denominator humor, really.
It's a feminist tactic. I think that's...
Makes sense.
I can be a dick.
All right, well... thank you, Bane and Little Miss Anonymous, for coming along. I would thank you, Tim, but it's kind of just assumed at this point, really.
Yeah. No problem. Me.
All right.
I've always got your back, no matter what you say. You don't have to thank me.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what the issue is. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Okay, thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
See you in hell.